Hip hop is the cure to racism. Hip hop is the cure to the world, a lot of the world's problems. And that's why it's so attacked and so exploited and so sought after by the whole entire planet. We're living Martin Luther King's vision. He foreseen us coming. He foreseen the healing of the nation. Because if you look at his speeches and all of that, he was talking about hip hop. He was talking about the forecoming of hip hop. We are it. We are dancing together. We're the living manifestation of that dream. I mean, who can deny it?
Stay tuned, stay curious. A Culturation Podcast. Stern, or otherwise known as Bboy Remind.
What's up?
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really glad to have you here and be able to get to know you on a deeper level. All your life histories and your worldviews, and really grateful to have such a legend sitting before me today.
Wow, that's thank you for holding me in that light, and I appreciate that, and that honors me, and it's an honor to be here. And when I'm able to do my work, I feel like I'm on my purpose, when I'm building with people like you and doing works like this and sharing information and insights.
Yeah, thank you again. So let's lay down the building blocks for what your origins are and how you got to where you are today. But starting with your background first.
My background, I mean, it goes pretty deep, but I'm basically, my mom is Native. She's Northern Cheyenne and Lakota from Standing Rock and Lame Deer in Montana. That's my mama. And my grandma is from Standing Rock. My grandma is Lakota. So my mom's full-blood Native, or I should say Indigenous, Lakota, Cheyenne, and Nachistas. And then my dad is from the Philippines, and he's from Cebu. And my grandpa's from Cebu. And so I'm half Pinoy and half Indigenous, Native, so-called Native American, right? From the tribes Lakota and Northern Cheyenne. And so that's my beginnings. That's where I pull my sources from, my DNA, my memory, and my culture. And so I pull from those two things that I was raised up in. And that's what makes me, and that's why my name is Remind. And grew up in Stockton, California, Sacramento, in the Bay Area. Grew up all around here. And I can't really say the Valley. I could say the 209. I grew up there and I was based a lot there, but I traveled so much here to the Bay. I traveled so much to Frisco to go to a party every weekend. Traveled to Oakland, San Jose, Santa Cruz. So I was always out here in the Bay Area also. But grew up in the Valley, Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto. But was exposed to this whole Northern Cali, even a lot of LA. I grew up a lot out there because my sister moved out there, and I used to go visit her all the time in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, what was your childhood like, and what drew you to dance and eventually the breaking community?
Well, actually, I grew up in this. It was like when you wake up in the morning and you turn on the TV and cartoons are on, Scooby-Doo and Transformers and, even My Little Pony, It's like I was raised this way. When I woke up, I turned on the TV, it was hip-hop. It was, Soul Sonic Force. It was, so when I could get up, I got totally, raised this way. I grew up in the 70s, 77. I was born in 77. So my early childhood in the late 70s and the early 80s was so influential, from the music to the movies, kung fu movies.
Did you get exposed to this in Stockton, though?
Yes, in Stockton.
That blows my mind, because when I visit Stockton nowadays, I wouldn't have imagined that, Stockton produced a Remind.
Oh, man. And what's the crazy thing is that not only did it produce me, but it produced Bruce Lee. It produced a lot of people that are unknown that produced these superstars, are these people who got known well because, Danny Inosantos was teaching Bruce Lee Eskrima, was teaching him about the Pinoy martial arts, right? He brought them down to Stockton, and with the Manongs, the elders, the World War II veterans, you know what I mean? The real warriors, like that's where they were. They were in Stockton, Well, when we came from, my dad and my grandpa and all of them came from the war, from the Philippines. So the martial arts there and the culture of Filipinos coming to this land was really thick. Stockton, they used to call it Little Manila. So we have an Asian, like a Chinatown there, and a lot of Asians with the gambling halls and everything. So the Valley alone, I think, has got tremendous talent. But we're the Valley, we're in the cut, we're in the fields, we're in the orchards, right? So I think a lot of greatness comes out of that area because of kind of the isolation. And if you want to get good at a craft, you kind of isolate and really go deep into that craft, because there's not a lot of distractions. In our city, we didn't have a lot of big concerts or even clubs or anything like that. More garages, house parties, more, interactions with people on a personal level.
Yeah, so you're saying with limited options, you have greater focus.
Yeah, and like I said, even Stockton, the geology of the great people that settled there, really talented and amazing, and Stockton is, not known as such a good city, but I think the pressure makes diamonds, right? And that is a hard city. It's a hard place to grow up to, but it's a beautiful place to grow up to also because of the diversity. There's so much diversity in Stockton, and especially I grew up downtown in Gleason Park. I grew up like downtown Central. So
Considering that it's a hard city, I would imagine implying crime and gang violence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how did you survive such a landscape?
That's why I'm so grateful to hip hop. Hip hop has saved my life. And that's why I'm indebted to hip hop in a sense of I do outreach work and I do community and mentor work, is because I was mentored the same way in those streets. And anyone who really grew up in that ghetto life can be a witness that when you were into hip hop and you were around gang members knew inside that there was a better way, And so when they seen you on a positive path, they were like, hey, keep on that stuff. Keep doing that. Don't fall off. Like keep there, because over here you can end up in prison or you're gonna end up shot. So when my cousins and my neighborhood seen me getting into breaking, they really encouraged it. Every time I went out as a little kid, I was only 5, 6 years old. And when I went out in the circle, the whole crowd behind me would be cheering. It's like, oh, go, go, go. And even if I wasn't so good, when I pulled off a move or even when I fell, it was like, oh, they were excited. And I seen the way that I could go out in a circle and I can have an effect on people like that. And so it just embedded into me that, like, this was the way to go. This is what I should invest in. And it kept me safe out there. A lot of people, they love B-boys. You know what I mean? Like, we will walk through hoods and they'd be like, oh, no, don't mess with him. He's a B-boy. You know what I mean? We're in a whole different hood, and we would get a pass because you were a B-boy, because you were into the arts, or you were a dope grapher, or you were a dope skateboarder, or they recognize talent. Gangsters recognize talent, and they're not trying to gang activity. I'm so grateful that we're in a whole different world now than we were back then, because it was really horrible. It was like, you had to worry about getting hit up. Where you from, homie? Or where, So when hip hop gave us that way, we dressed different. We didn't dress like gangsters. They looked at us and was like, all right, homie, you into that stuff? Like, yeah, keep on that path. And so the OGs knew. So that's how I got raised in there. Like, hip hop gave me a ghetto pass. It's called a ghetto pass.
Did you feel like having that pass and also having the duality of street versus creativity gave you any particular identity or confidence? Because you come from the streets, which is already tough.
Yeah.
That confidence was also brought into your dancing?
Yes, but also, I just because I say I had a ghetto pass didn't mean I didn't have to fight.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of street fights, brethren. You know what I'm saying? Lots and lots of fights. We grew up fighting. And so I could tell you that being raised in that tough gangster environment and poverty gave me the confidence to dance because I had been in real rumbles at a young age, like real rumbles where the whole park is fighting, you know, and your cousins and you know what I mean? It was wild back then. And that adrenaline rush from fighting and, you know what I mean, going through something like, I remember, you know, how that felt and that whole, you know, jittery energy. So when it was just dancing, when I was going out in the circle, it was nothing to me because I grew up street fighting. And so this was safe. It was fun. It was happy. It was music. It was dancing. So I didn't have that same fear that other people had of being self-conscious or I was just so happy that we weren't fighting. You know what I mean? That wasn't a gang brawl. There wasn't a shooting happening. And so when we get those times where we could create a positive energy, I had no fear in me, you know, because I already been through other things that were really hard. And then, because there's an example of me, there was a time where I stepped to like all the OGs, you know, battling them, like confrontational. And everyone was looking at me like, yo, you just stepped to Rocksteady. You just stepped to these. And I'm like, we're dancing. You know what I mean? Like, we're not hitting each other on the head with chains and bars and sticks. And you know what I mean? Like, this is no knife and no gunplay. This is dancing. How am I going to ever be scared to go out and dance? Because I've already been a part of real violence. Like, my oldest brother is in prison for life still. You know what I mean? My cousin's in prison. Like, I already seen that life at a young age. You know what I mean? On what a simple street fight could do. You know what I mean? And get someone landed in prison for the rest of your life, you know? So, and then go visiting them, seeing them buying those chains, you know? So I was like, man, this ain't nothing. This is beautiful. This is fun. Like, this, you know? So I never took it, a lot of the way a lot of other people took it as in being insecure or self-confident or things like that when going into the circle or going out to dance. That I never really had that feeling. Of course, that nervous energy and butterfly energy still will come inside me because I'm kind of excited and, you know, but never fear. Always, you know, just couldn't wait to get out there and create positive energy.
Yeah, like at what moment did you realize that this was more than just a chapter or a stage and started becoming a part of you?
Oh man, it goes so deep because it was just that.
The reason why I bring it up is because, in my opinion and perception, you have a lot of soulfulness and spirituality in your expression, right?
Oh, bless
So
it.
it's deeper than just I want to win battles or,
Oh yeah.
you know. So like I'm curious about when that fusing or how it happened.
Well, this is a good topic because I think, no, I know because I've been the experiment, is that the more you dance, the more you remember. You know, so I was dancing at a young age. I was getting activated. I believe dance is an activation. Dance does something to the DNA and to the biology of the human being, especially when you're dealing with sound, you know, and movement, and syncing those two. Something special happens. Something special in your DNA and yourself and your self-esteem and your self-knowing. And it's almost dealing with like a telepathy, you know, because you didn't probably even hear that song, but you know where that song is going. And you can anticipate when those horns and drums are going to drop. It's such a trip. So it's kind of like a spiritual space when you get into dancing. You're not here, you're not there. You know, you're in a realm, you're in a trance. Well, that's where I go, you know? And so I think even from a young age, me doing all those spins, windmills, head spins, centrifugal force, spinning, you know, the power of spin, especially that windmill. Something special about those windmills and head spins, halos, crab walks, back spins. I believe that those reactivate dormant DNA. And so as I was young, I was having crazy insights and I was going to school at the same time. And it just totally blew the lid off of education for me. I was smarter than the teachers. That's what I felt. I was smarter than other students that were going to school. So I was like, if I learn this, it's going to hurt me. They're going to mess with my mind and make me think a certain way when I'm free of that.
Okay, can you give me an example of what that might have been at that time? Like, was it in elementary school, middle school?
Yeah, very young.
Okay.
Very young. I saw through the veil of education, and I'm not downing education. I'm just saying it needs to be revamped and upgraded, right? It's an old operating system. And so I seen it, and I seen beyond the lies and a lot of the miseducation. And as a young age, and I was like, like this is not something I want to invest in. I want to invest in my spiritual education. I want to invest in myself. I want to invest in me succeeding, not me fitting into a society that is broken. And I seen it was broken already at a very young age. I seen society broken, and I seen that the system's broken, a lot of the city or the poverty. I grew up in the ghetto. So
yeah, considering that your mom is Native and you're half Native or Indigenous by
yes,
that account, did that give you extra awareness and sensitivity into what the system is ultimately like?
Well, definitely I was exposed to the traumas of boarding school because my grandma and my mom went to boarding school. So they did, like, say, for instance, when we would get in trouble and get punished, they do the same things to us. We get hit with a ruler, we get a bar of soap put in our mouth, and we get books put on our hands and sit on our knees. And they would do the same things to us when we get in trouble as what happened to them, So a lot of that, a lot of growing up with Native struggles, I was very aware of what happened to us. You know what I mean? And I was very aware that we used to be very wealthy. You know what I mean? Like very wealthy, and we were made poor. And that was something that was embedded in me, because I remember being free. I remember riding horse 45 miles an hour on the plain. I remember hunting. I remember, ancient ways. If your DNA has lived this way for, say, 500,000 years, do you know what I mean? And then just this time now, within this barely 100, because for Lakotas, it's new. We were like one of the last tribes, right? To get on the reservation. So this is new. This whole thing is new to us, even though that's only 3 generations ago?
I see what you're saying. So there's a lot more to remember than the new experience.
Exactly. And just the way my nose is formed or my eyes are formed, your biology holds memory. And my eyes they say are shaped like my great grandpa's. You know what I mean? So to holding that memory, we don't only remember the features, but we remember we are them. And that's why that remind affirmation was always in me, even when I was young. I knew that I was them. That I wasn't separate. I'm not just this individual who just showed up and, I knew that I had come from a long, long line of great people, but I was being put in an impoverished ghetto situation.
Did you have anyone to process all this with? Like, where were your parents or?
No, I grew up the ghetto way, bro. Like the real ghetto way. Like my mom was a gangster. You know what I'm saying? Like a real gangster, tats on her chest, and in Sacramento, and that's what culture she identified with. So I grew up. I was raised by gangsters. And then on my dad, these are all on my dad's side. He was. I can't even go into too much doubt. Just say that they're war torn. Do you know what I mean? Like they come from war. They come from the Bataan Death March. So I'm being raised by these people, so I'm hearing all these stories from both sides of what happened to us and why we're here now, why we're in Stockton, California, why we're in the ghetto now.
Did you hear stories that were more of, I guess, of the true story, or the story that
Well, exactly. See,
Yeah.
that's where I talk about education.
Yeah.
I knew the real story. I knew real story what happened to Cheyennes and Lakotas. I knew the real story what happened to the Pinoys, and during the world wars, And so the tribalness, I was always heard and knew about the tribalness, and I knew about who my ancestors were. So when you know your ancestors are Lapo Lapo and Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse and all these great leaders, but you wake up in this time and you're, like I said, you wake up in poverty. You wake up in this and oh shoot, we're in civilization now, and like I said, to me, even now, this is new. This is a whole new way. This is because, like I said, at least 400,000 years we were living this way, and this whole that's why I'm excited to have conversations like this, because that whole ice bridge, land barrier, we migrated here from Asia and, and all this stuff is like, that's even a lie. That's someone's story. That's someone's guess. But I hear it straight from the source. I get it from the elders that came here. No, we came from the earth. We're from here. You know what I mean? We're from here. Like we came from the land, like out of the land. Like we are the earth. We are animated earth. You know what I mean? So a lot of those history, his story, right? I don't subscribe to a lot of that stuff because I remember, and that's why that's why dance is so important to me, because I know I have a lot owed to dance and music, because that's what made me remember. The more I dance, the more I remember. I'm activated through dance, through spin, through sound vibration, through cymatics that now we're learning, right? So yeah, having those experiences with dance activated an ancient memory, I believe, especially the spins, especially the head spinners, windmills, head spins. Like that's a powerful centrifuge.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of stuff that's very, very interesting. I'm curious about. With so much knowledge, whether it's picking up from here or picking up through a memory, how do you stay? How do you manage all that? Because it seems to be a huge load, and that load could be very burdensome, right?
Oh, you recognize, brother. You recognize because, honestly, I'm an exposed nerve. That's how sensitive I am. I hear people's songs. I hear that everyone is a song. So when you get activated to this level, it's maybe not for everyone. You know what I mean? And it is a lot to deal with, but I deal with it. It's given to those who can deal with it, right? And so I have this activation, and I'm here to activate others who are dormant, And so I'm excited about that work. I'm excited to talk about these things that other people don't talk about, or activations that they're not activated on yet, so.
Yeah. So, for example, like with all the things that's going on in our country currently, how do you wake up and still find joy in your life, and you still find the strength to do the work and not just drown in despair, right?
Well, I don't subscribe to none of that, and I never did, because I wake up every morning very, very wealthy, in a sense of I know who I am and I know what I'm here to do. So with that, no one could take anything from me and no one could harm me, because I'm here on a purpose. And if I stay on that purpose, I am protected and blessed. And that's what I truly believe in. I truly know. So none of that matters. And I also like that remind again, that affirmation. I also know where I'm from, and that empowers me. I know exactly who I am and where I'm from. And I did the work and the research to do that. And I still look at this as native land. I don't look at this as America. I look at this as an ancient, ancient, ancient place from the beginning of time, and I know our land has so many wonders that are still unexplained or unexplored, and I'm very proud to be here. Like even in California, in the Bay Area, I pick up on the Ohlone, the Winton, the Yokuts, the Miwoks, the Pomo. I pick up on their energy and their vibe, and I speak to them. I interface with this land. A true indigenous person interfaces with the land. Doesn't just walk on it and just, no, he's interface. That's his motherboard. That's his supercomputer. That's his quantum computer. That's how, and I'm grateful that technology is a little bit catching up to indigenous technology, to where we can use technology to explain what we were already experiencing. And it ain't no accident that all of this technology has sprouted from indigenous land with indigenous materials. It's indigenous technology. So I don't get caught in that. I'm too on the upgrade. You know what I mean? I'm so upgraded. And I'm here to do that. That politics, you know what I mean? And all of that stuff has always been a distraction for me. And I always knew it was. And I always knew there were, let's just be honest, psychotic. You know what I mean? That's how I look at them. I look at them as sick people, confused, you know, on what to do and what they're supposed to do. I'm not confused. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. So that makes me curious about, with such a clarity on purpose, how did you settle into breaking as one of the vehicles for physical expression?
Well, that's really easy because you know what? I think breaking is the height of technology, of human technology. You know, we're hacking at our limitations. And collectively, all of us been hacking these limitations. And look at where we've gotten. We've gotten to nearly dang right anti-gravity, right? To levitation. And this has come from refining these movements, refining. It's something beautiful. It's technology. You can open a portal with an air flare. You know what I mean? You can open portals with these windmills. I mean, think about like how powerful these geometric forms are, because that's what they are. Once you take geometric form and you get in sync with the sacred geometry, it creates harmony. And it creates such a vibration that's invisible that where you'll hear people hundreds of feet away get hit and touched by it like a sonic boom, and it goes through their body and they all make the same sound. It goes, oh. You know what I mean? Like it'll hit them. Oh, I've heard this. I've been doing this for 40 years. Oh, you know, it hits them in their soul and they make that same sound. And even if you watch a lot of footage, you'll hear them make it at the exact same moment. Everyone will go at the same time. Oh, and that's the sound of unity. Oh, you know, so I look at breaking as technology, basically. I look at b-boying as a higher form of being.
Okay, so
not all.
Did you grow into this like understanding, or like at which point in your journey did you like kind of put two and two together? Because I mean, like, I would be very confused if you figured this out as a kid, you know?
yeah, of course, because this is for advanced thinkers. That's why I say I wait to have a conversation with people who can intake this. Well, if you really look at it, I mean, it's not like I learned anything. It's just like I was remembering. You know, I don't believe in evolution, brother. Like, I don't believe in that story. I don't believe we came from monkeys. I don't believe none of that. You know, it's probably some people came from monkeys, but not us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't believe in evolution. I believe we came here with the original instructions and we came here complete. And Creator didn't make something incomplete and go, oh, I'm going to work on you over time. No, that's why the oldest technology is the hardest to explain. You know what I mean? That's why the further in time you go back, the more phenomenons you're like, hold on, how did they lift the 100-ton rock? Like, this is, how did they do this pyramid? How did they do these things? How did they do Easter Island? How does Machu Picchu, like, they can't explain it. See, so the farther we go back is the more technological you get, because I believe that we came here with complete. And as time went on, through wars, trauma causes amnesia. And we're in this time of, and we're coming out of a time of great amnesia. And we're coming into a time of great remembrance. And I'm a part of that. You know, I'm a part of the great remembrance. And let's be honest, the true form of a windmill is an atom. Look at it. Map it. We're moving like the particle. We're re-collaborating ourselves with the windmill. A windmill should be something like studied and utilized in medicine, in actual the medical field. A windmill heals. A windmill is a healing cymatic that you take with physical form. You know?
So in that regard, healing in a emotional sense or physical sense? Or
Every sense. In every sense. It transmutates energy. So whether it's negative or positive, it's a transmutator. It moves it, you know, and it releases it, because otherwise I'd be gone through all the pain and trauma that I experienced, you know. But breaking and dance helped me transmutate all that pain and trauma that I experienced through my life and turned it into somebody, a positive being that is out here mentoring the planet.
how did you feel when you achieved your first windmill?
That's what I'm saying, euphoric. Medicine. I couldn't help it. I couldn't stop doing it. Every time I seen a smooth floor, I'm like, oh, I could do a windmill over there. Backspin to headspin, backbend. You know, I would think about every time I seen a smooth floor, I go into the mall, I go into Macy's, I go into JC. I'm looking at the floor like, ooh, the fast windmills like it. That's the real B-boy. That's what I'm saying. Not many, many do the moves, but to have the spirit of a B-boy, to embody the whole spirit, that's what I am, you know, and I preserve that.
Would you say that this spirit is something that is more unique to your relationship to breaking, or do you feel like this is the spirit of breaking?
I think this is what happens to you when you unlock and when you enhance, you know, through movement, technology, you know, because like I said, all these are cymatics. All this is sacred geometry. It's all related. The footwork, the 6-step, the baby freeze, the swipes, the head spins, the halos. You know what I mean? All of these things are sacred geometry.
Yeah, this reminds me of a common thing I hear from indigenous practices or ceremonies is the set and setting, right? So the setting might be you're doing a headspin or you're doing a windmill, but what is the set? What's your mindset? What's your intentions as you're doing it? So what's your intentions when you do a windmill?
When I'm doing a windmill, say it's a feeling. Okay. It's an energy. It's something that has to transmutate, has to transform, or it's going to turn into something violent. You know what I mean? Like a fist fight, a street fight, or some violence. So this is like, you have that same urge of kind of like being violent, but then you turn it into something that, like, if you get kicked with a windmill, you're getting hurt. You know what I mean? If somebody busts a windmill air flare on you and something hits you, you're going to get knocked out. That's how much energy and power are in these forms. You know what I mean? Like there's one time where I was doing a windmill and I hit a chair and broke the chair and flew it across the whole room. Yeah, I had a little mark on my shin, but that metal steel chair got, you know what I mean, tossed and broken. That's how much power is in a windmill, bro, with the centrifugal force and what we're utilizing, nuclear atomic energy. That's what I realized. That's what we're tapping into. We're tapping into a nuclear atomic force. You know, literally from the nucleus into the atomic from the atom. So recollaborating and structuring your insides through these movements sets things in alignment, like even spinal alignment, kundalini energy, you can call it whatever, you know, the force, chi, you know, it's pretty phenomenal. So it's more of a feeling. It's more of an expression that has to be, you know, moved.
So you're definitely highly associated and known for mixing and combining many things, right? Things outside of the breaking forms as well, right? What's your approach to that? And is that just a natural affinity to wanting to maintain freedom? Or like, can you guide me through how you're like, yeah, let me do this from breaking, and over time it being evolved into a healing modality, but also you're like, let me do all these other things as well.
Well, it's but you hit it on the head when you said it first. It's more of a freedom thing. It's more of a pure connection to self, you know. And you can be influenced by a lot of people and movements, but ultimately expressing yourself, not trying to express somebody else the way they did it at that time. You know, I was always trying to bring new feelings, brand new, these, you know, the things that I'm feeling now, not things that I'm just regurgitating or I'm just trying to break right or house right or pop or lock right, you know? And also it goes against authority. You know, because a lot of these dancers, when they think they make up a dance, they become like an authority figure, you know, and they're like, you got to do it this way or you're not doing it right. And I always never liked that mentality, you know, because I understood, I was so already connected to my native roots, you know, and I've already seen some high grade dancing. You know, I'm talking about some dancing that's out of this world. And I'll probably explain that later, that people think they're good. You know, you think that these people are good, right? Like, oh, wow, it's flashy. But I've seen dancers that can control the weather.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And it's totally different. Just like these dancers control the crowd, I seen dancers control weather, control earth, control sky. And when you see that, this stuff is not so, you know, you're just like, oh, you know, good trick. You know what I mean? Good flip. Good on command. You know what I mean? So my whole thing was revolutionary. Being revolutionary and also breaking the rules. Okay, see, this is the difference between people who say that they're B-boys and that are not. Like, people like me, I was expelled out of every school I went to. You know? Like, principal's office all the time. Fights in the hallway all the time. Like, can't function in society. Do you know what I mean? Like, rebellious. Whenever there's a principal, I just can't wait to say F you and flip him off. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have that rebellion. Oh, he's in trouble. He's going again. I'm like, I'm throwing my book on my table. F you, teacher. You know what I mean? That I didn't even graduate high school, brethren. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was rebellious. So same thing when I come into breaking and I see all these people telling me how to dance and trying to act like, you know, I was rebellious against that. I was like, there was people who were saying, oh, poppers pop, lockers lock, breakers break. And I looked at them like, now I'm really going to do it. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm really going to break your rules because you think you're an authority and I know you're not. I'm from the ghetto too. I'm ghetto certified. I survived it. So the way I approach this dance is no one could tell me what to do. You know what I mean? No one could tell me how to dance because I know dance is ancient. And I know, just like I said, we're just discovering again, you know? And I'm also, brother, let's be honest, I'm inspired by tap. I love tap dancing so much. My favorite dancers are the Nicholas brothers, Sammy Davis Jr., the Hoofers. You know, I grew up on popping, on strutting, Demons of the Mind. You know, early in the early 80s, I got to see them brothers perform and they changed my life. You know, locking, Don Campbell, Soul Train. You know, I grew up on this stuff. So Kung Fu movies, if you look at everything I'm saying, that's how I dance. You know what I mean? Popping, locking, Kung Fu movies, breaking, you know. I'm inspired by Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly. You know, I grew up on these movies. So, you know.
At which point do you do your own thing versus respect the art form and try to at least adhere to some level of execution for it?
Well, I definitely believe and I spread the philosophy of foundation is freedom. If Don didn't feel free to do what he did on Soul Train or do what he did and start pointing at everyone and shouting everyone out and power to the people, and if he didn't feel free to do that, we would have no dance called locking. You know, and it breaking too. If someone didn't feel free to just spin on their back and get on their head, and while society's being like, no, you're getting dirty, oh, you're gonna break your neck, and they still did that. You know what I mean? So I knew that the foundation to all of these movements was freedom. So I respect all the art forms in their forms, totally, but I also know that their foundation is freedom. So then I learned the freedom first, and then I learned the forms. You know, so I do know the forms of foundation of locking. I do know the foundation of popping. I do know the foundation of breaking. I do know the foundations of house. All these things that I mix, and I'm also a martial artist. So I mix all of those things, but I do hold them in their own foundations. You know, like I have foundation to jiu-jitsu. I have foundation to boxing. I have foundation to kickboxing. I have foundation. But when it's a street fight, anything goes. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing like I look at breaking in a cipher. It's like when I get into that cipher, it's like a street fight. Anything goes.
That makes sense because you're looking at it from a a real world perspective versus like, hey, this is a boxing match, so we gotta be boxers and
Be on these rules and
get
everything.
graded.
It's
Okay.
like, nah, you're trying to rearrange my nose. Like, then we're not friends no more. This none of this is playing no more. So whatever works, and what's the most efficient and what's the most sophisticated way, or efficient way of going about solving your problem.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. But I see what you're saying though, with the freedom aspect, right?
Yeah.
Did you naturally get a lot of pushback over your years of like, hey, you're no longer a b-boy or something because you're doing too much, or you're doing like that's not foundation?
Nah, not really, because you know what? Everyone who grew up in the ghetto can identify with me. You know what I mean? And let's the foundation is poverty of this whole movement. Is oppression, because they oppressed these. So when people in the ghetto in New York even just get around me, they have respect for me because they know I'm from the ghetto. They know I grew up that way. They knew I grew up hard, so I never had that problem. Everyone could feel that around me. People, they may, only cats that at one generation, it was like, they got offended that we had advanced breaking so much that it kind of went away from the true form of just footwork and, New York style. I understand why they got offended, but I totally understand how they didn't understand where we're from, and where I'm from is from the West Coast, the Bay Area, the Valley, the place that George Lucas comes from, the place that all of this stuff spawns from where tech spawns from. So the same way that, like, I put it to like the computing world or the tech world, the same way like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and all of these tech people were creating these motherboards in the Silicon Valley. And guess what they were doing? They were doing it in the garages. That's the same thing we were doing with breaking. We went in the garages and we modified this whole thing. You know what I mean? We took things apart. We said, oh, that over here, that over there, that, and we just kept modifying it. And as we practiced, we kept modifying the floor rockers, sidewalk breakers, master breakers, style elements. You know what I mean? Like, we really went in. Rock Force, all the crews out here in the Bay Area, Renegades, Headhunters. There's so many crews out here in the Bay. You know what I mean? And so along with these brothers that we mentioned, we all hacked at the physical, movements of this and upgraded it as time went on.
So would it be accurate to say that because you come from the street life, poverty reality, right? And naturally there's systems and opportunities working against you.
Yes.
So there's a big need to always strive for freedom because you're under pressure the whole time, right? And therefore, you feel like that's just a natural state of being in any space you go to. So like, why take on this art form to constrict yourself to the form versus using the form to experience freedom?
Yes. Well, I'm just on that level of that's a form of mastery. You know what I mean? Like, to master and also to be brave, to trailblaze, to create trails, not just go down the one that's already carved for you, but actually go the more efficient route that just cuts by and just goes right there. But it's got a lot of bushes, so you got to bring the machete and you got to forge and you cut those lanes yourself. And that's what I had did with movement. I had went through the bamboo forest, you know what I mean? And then cut a path and did all the work. And then others didn't have to do all that work. They just went down the path and got to the place more efficiently. And that's what I was, trailblazing.
Yeah. I am curious about what are your thoughts on the journey of breaking scene overall to where it is today, recently being in the Olympics, compared to the roots of it, right? So I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on that. Like, what are some of your thoughts?
Oh, man. I mean, breaking being in the Olympics was a collective dream of all of us.
Okay.
All of us seen that this deserved the respect physically, the same or even more that they got from being an Olympic competitor. We knew that B-boys carried a certain excellence and such a shame because it came such later where a lot of those people who would have demonstrated a lot of those skills, they stopped, or they're older now. They, you know what I mean? They're in their 50s, 60s now. But there was one trait that they had that was like, no one could beat them at that. You know what I mean? Like that, they were specialty. So I don't mind the Olympics. I just think that it was done wrong. I think it was just also what do they call that? Cultural misappropriation. I think it was misappropriated. I think I got data for people because even all this talk is upgrade to the system if they want to listen, because breaking could fit in the Olympics, but the only way to me that it could fit in the Olympics is if they segregated the categories. If they had best windmill, best head spins, best footwork, best top rock, and then at the end had them put it all together and show who's the most complete, right? But they just put a big soup together. You know what I mean? And no one understood it. It was just like, what's going on here? That was the way it should have been presented in the Olympics. It should have been there to highlight breaking, not take over breaking. You know what I mean? It should have highlighted these incredible, phenomenal moves that are similar to like how gymnastics do it. They got the beam, they got the uneven bars, they got the floor routine. We needed that in breaking. We needed someone to demonstrate the best head spins. You know what I mean? The most variations, the best, most balanced. You can easily judge that. Best windmills, you can judge that. Best footwork, you can judge that. But it all together, it's very hard to judge. You know, almost impossible. So they gave themselves an impossible task, as in trying to just make breaking and battle seem like it was that was the Olympic, what do you call that? That should have been highlighted in the Olympics. But no, I just saw it different. So when I seen it that way and I seen who they had judge and who they had organizing it, I knew it was going to go wrong. I knew that it was going to get sabotaged. And I knew they were going to make us look in a light that we don't belong in, you know? And then also, I'll bring this up, is that you got to understand too, is intellectual, right? Having intellect, okay? It's not just an opinion. It's seeing how things go and why things are the way they are. Why did breaking, like say, I asked this question from you. Why did they want breaking in the Olympics? Why do you think they wanted breaking in the Olympics?
I am not sure why they wanted breaking in the Olympics, but I can speculate on why. Well, based on how it was ran down on the remnants that I did get to know, maybe is to control the narrative.
Okay,
or,
I could
or like rebrand what breaking is.
Okay, I mean, you know, that seems like that would be the logical question, right? Or the logical answer because of where it went. But you got to look at the Olympics before breaking was even introduced. Okay, what happened to the Olympics is, let's be honest, all their gold medals and silver medalists got molested. Do you know about the story about that?
Yeah, so I barely know anything about the breaking portion of Olympics, and I barely know anything about the Olympics to begin with.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I'll educate you just a little bit on the Olympics. Okay, before breaking was announced to be in the Olympics, this doctor, Larry Nassar or something like that, he had molested something like 100 and something Olympic competitors. And most of them, all the gold medals got molested, the girls, the little girls. And it had got this bad press. You can look it up. And everyone boycotted the Olympics after that. Okay? And this is a year before breaking is announced that it's going to be in the Olympics. It got such a bad rap that see how you don't even know about it. But you can look, it's big. You can research everything I'm saying. So Olympics got put in a bad light, and their viewers were going down. They lost all their young people. So that's why breaking is in the Olympics. The breaking was put in the Olympics to regain the youth, regain the attention of the younger generation by using breaking, because they know breaking already is a phenomenon. We don't need the Olympics. The Olympics needed us. And I said it in the beginning, because already breaking has a better format globally than the Olympics does. And more attention, more swag, more energy, more, So it was downgrading going to that, because we're coming from literally a freedom culture into something so, so oppressed that they're getting molested just to be gold medalists, and I don't mean to bring this up. Hopefully this gets edited out, but just to letting why they put breaking in the Olympics. You can look up the timeline, and they needed the young attention. They needed the young folks again. And so that's why they got breaking in there for only 1 year. And it was just a PR and a promo for the Olympics to trying to get back on track with the global attention from the youth.
Wow. I did not know all that.
That's why they did not care to have one judge from NYC, not one, elder over there. It was just, it was a promo, bro. And let's be honest, it was a Red Bull BC1. Every dancer on there was a Red Bull dancer. Not one of them was a free agent. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you got to look at what was really going on. It was a promotion for Red Bull BC1 for them to get the spin off of this. And it was promo for both. You know what I mean? So I get it. So it wasn't really to uplift the culture. It was to utilize the culture again.
Okay, so taking a step back from the Olympics, would you say that the breaking scene overall has gotten more sport-based versus being an art form?
Yeah, that's just because that's the way that the budget is going. That's what they're funding. They're not funding these local community events no more. They're not trying to make it empowering. They're just trying to incorporate it, and make it in a corporation. And so it's lost a lot of its rawness. It looks soulless to me, from someone who grew up in this and is it. I am it. And corporates are scared of what real b-boys are. They're petrified of me.
Would it be because it goes back to that lack of control, because you represent freedom?
Hell yeah, because I'm rebellious and I flip off the principal. You know what I mean? I always flip off the principal. The guy who thinks he's in charge and he thinks he's running thing and he's bald because of stress. You know what I mean? And he's not living the life that you could see. He's not living his best life. You know what I mean? So why am I going to try and let these be my masters or my teachers? No, you have to lead by example. The masters who I follow lead by example. I'm not going to follow someone. There's a proverb in a native way. They say, never trust a chief that can't dance. And a lot of these chiefs can't dance. Straight up. They're the corporate chiefs, right? But they can't dance worth nothing, brethren. And that's why the scene looks the way it looks, because if they got some true activated chiefs, dancers, the scene will look a lot different.
Would you say that's the missing ingredient to preserving the soul in breaking? Or what could be done, I guess, from a general vantage, and what could be done from someone like yourself?
I think there already was an amazing infrastructure there that got it to this point, and I think that there was amazing leaders there. And I think we got the leaders. We just got to put them in the right seats. Put the leaders in the seats, not the promoters. You know what I mean? And promoters think that they're leaders, and they're promoters, and they need to go with the real revolutionary leaders and the real people who have trailblazed and innovated, so they understand the technology, because this is technology. I look at it like that. So you're giving this technology to someone who didn't create it. He doesn't know how this thing works. He may be a super fan of it. Doesn't matter. He doesn't know the ins and outs, the little tedious, intricacies on why this technology works. But these leaders and these people who I talk about who are chiefs, they do, but they're never put in that position to lead. They're always put in a position of being exploited.
what would some of the qualities to look for in a person who would be considered a leader?
Someone who is connected, and not only saying he's connected, but showing that they're connected. And also someone who's not greedy. You know, a tribesman, someone who distributes wealth, not who hoards it. I think that's a good,
When you say connected to what aspects?
I would say connected to the original instructions, connected to the Ethernet, connected, to right here, to these instructions, so something like like I said, it's cool that technology is catching up to spiritual technology because we can use it to explain. Like the internet is invisible, right? Can't even see it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing like that. It's that source. It's the Ethernet. It's in the ether, and it's that web that's in the ether. And if you know how to read that and connect into that Ethernet, into the now, to the net now, you wouldn't need the internet. You have all the connection. You are the source. You are the router. You are the hub. And your body, your biology is the radio. And your pineal gland, your pine cone, activating your pine cone. See, someone who's highly conscious, someone who's highly connected and activated, not deactivated. That's what I mean. And you can tell by their actions and the way they carry themselves, and by the way they dance, by the way they sing, by the way they mantra, with rhyming, rapping, whatever. You'll see all those qualities come out, because they're having visions. They're connected. They're downloading the now, and they're giving you access, because some people don't have access. And that's why there was that chief there, and he had that satellite. People think it was a war bonnet. That wasn't a war bonnet. That was a satellite.
As a new person or a younger person, would you say that the summary of what you're saying is not only memory, but also intuition? And so how does someone open up their intuition to filter out, like, this is a truth versus this is a harmful concept?
Well, I say that's why I'm so into dance, because I say dance. Dance and you'll remember. Dance and you'll find your purpose. Dance. But not just steps. Not just, and I got taught this in class. No, dance with no form. Dance with no rhythm. Dance when there is rhythm, when there's not rhythm, when they're in between. All just dance and you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like ironing. I may be all wrinkled right now, but I'm just getting there, And so as you dance more, you're ironing yourself out. You're taking care of yourself. You're acknowledging yourself. Dance forces you to acknowledge yourself. You'll know, and those dancers know, you'll witness to be like, hey, I didn't even know that muscle was there. You know what I mean? Like, until it got sore from dancing that way all night for, who knows how many hours. So I just say dance. Dance is the way that we, I think it's a higher form of communication. It's a higher form of language. It's a higher form of being. And I think it's a language with less confusion.
What are some things that dance has helped you heal or process?
Everything, brother, everything. Dance is everything to me. This conversation is a dance.
So you mentioned earlier about the windmill being the atom and
the particle and the atom, yeah.
Yeah, the particle and the atom and the movements. Given that movements such as the windmill are physically very highly demanding and highly
yes. Fully embodied.
Yeah, fully embodied. So what are your thoughts on, like, as you get older, right? And then one day that the access might be cut off just because of
physical limitations.
Yeah. So, like, what are your thoughts around that? And
okay, well, see, the windmill it's good to do when you're young and everything. And the windmill is such an amazing technology, because also, if you want to deal with your ego, then do a windmill, because you can't have an ego when you do a windmill. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't be an egotistical. If you be an ego, you can, but guarantee that hip is going to go bang, or that head is going to. Do you know what I mean? As soon as the ego enters in, you're going to hurt yourself. So you got to get rid of that first.
I've never tried to do a windmill, but I have seen what you're talking about play out in other scenes before. I got to personally experience that in the rock climbing scene, right? So, for example, I noticed that the rock climbing scene, everyone's very humble. Like, no one really talks crap just because
You get humbled quick.
Yeah, it's like either you did it or you don't, but you can't just like magic your way through it, you know?
Exactly. So it helps you also deal with your total ego. So you leave. You know what I mean? It's just about the movement. It's just what works. You know what I mean? And what will make it smoother, and what will make it more efficient, what will make it faster, what will make it more powerful, you know? So you get rid of, the windmill is such a good tool at getting rid of the ego, you know, during your movements. Headspin, same thing too. As soon as you start thinking you're full of something, you're going to start wobbling. No, you have to be total. You got to get rid of everything and become the lightest you can possibly, the most efficient, the most aerodynamic, the most, you know? So then you get that less resistance. So yeah, I forgot what we were going on, but that technology of the spin and the windmill, you know, I think it just exit out the ego. That's what I was getting to.
Yeah, I want to bring up again about how like, what are your thoughts as you get older, or as someone else gets older, right?
Okay, yeah, I remember the question now. The longer you do this, and my age, 48, and I've been doing this for 40 something years, is you get to mastery. And you get to this most efficient movement. And you can reach the same state you get into in a windmill or a headspin, you can reach that state in still motion. And you'll find it here where you're just holding the vibration. And I realized from being a dancer this whole time and studying dance, being a fanatic of dance, being a lover of dance, I found out the highest form of dance, the highest level you could reach, is nothing for show. There's no show in it. There's no leg kick. There's no arm. There's no wave. No, when you reach the highest level of dance, it's more like convulsive. It's more just like, you know, and it's simple. It's efficient. It's just there. And you're holding rhythm, and you're just holding, and your whole body encompasses, and you become a resonant chamber. And the sound just keeps ricocheting on you, in you, and your heartbeat, and everything just goes like this. So you don't need the fancy moves no more. You learn how to tap in and hold vibration, hold sound, hold rhythm, you know? And the longer you hold that rhythm, you turn yourself into like a receiver where you're able to receive information operating on that vibration and sound frequency.
So you're talking about these other movements being a permission slip for how to access that state without the actual movement, right?
Exactly.
Like, I guess if I'm playing off what you're illustrating, so let me give you an illustration of my own. It's akin to being in nature. You're underneath a waterfall and things are peaceful, and you've reached that place where you're like, oh, I actually am one with nature in this moment, right? And then you go back to your city, and city's chaotic, and you're like, oh, I'm totally disconnected. So you keep going back to the waterfall, but one day you learn how to be that peaceful in the city.
Yes, I. And you're able to tap in regardless of where you are. You know, you're able to, that's why I talk about the Ethernet. Because we have access. You just gotta, it's like everyone has a cell phone. It's just some are activated and some are not. You know, some didn't pay their bills, some didn't do the work. You know, some didn't, upgrade.
Yeah, let's talk about your experiences in interacting or teaching others in your journey, right? You gave me a lot of info. Some of it's very esoteric, where it's
yes,
like,
I understand that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not usually operating in this realm anymore.
Yeah, I'm not knocking it, but like, so what's your experience teaching others, and do you try to impart this level of depth and like meta awareness too, or do you focus more so on like the foundations or the music, like because this feels very passionate to you, right?
Yes.
Do your students get to access this part of you too?
I try to I'm like an open book. Like I said, I'm like an exposed nerve.
Yeah.
Even when I try to hold my tongue, it doesn't work. I think that's a part of my superpowers and also a part of my super weaknesses. You know what I mean? In a sense of I'm vulnerable because I don't really hide anything. I'm open and I'm kind of vulnerable in a way. So I do have to protect myself in a way. But anything that I have, I try to share. And I really want to upgrade humanity. I really feel like I'm here to give people a different insight into the way that they perceive things, because being a native man here on my homeland is I got access to a lot of wisdom and technology just by interfacing with the earth, and I got a lot to share. And that's why I'm Remind, because I really just want everyone to remember who they are and what they are and what they came to do. And when you do that, you empower your community, you empower your circle, you empower the world, right? And I think a lot of this war and strife is coming from people who are just not empowered. They're not connected. They're not activated, so they create war, strife, and resistance. And literally we're in 2025. We're in the future right now, but we're being held back by a lot of mental blockages from society out there that have been dormant. And it's a lot of these dormant people who are in charge, of resources and things like that. So I feel like that's why even with my students or anyone I teach, even a grandpa is my student sometimes. You know what I mean? Because these insights are coming from me, that sometimes they've been traumatized so much that they're just not aware of it. Like there's been something that, like I said, trauma causes amnesia. So a lot of people have amnesia, and I'm here to remind. I'm here to activate that sense of true human experience.
Yeah. So how would you do that in the context of a class? Because I would assume that you have a lot of breaking oriented workshops, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you impart this openness or this curiosity for folks to remember who they are, given that it's a breaking class? Is it through just a open heart talk at the end, or certain movements, or certain prompts?
Well, movement is medicine. And I believe every time you move, you're taking care of yourself, and you're activating all the medicines that are within you. Like we're a chemical factory, right? So we have all the medicines in us. It's just how to activate them and conjure them up, and mind states, right? Mind states are medicine. So all these movements that I share are medicine, and I teach the foundation of breaking, the foundation of popping, locking. But I understand that there's something energetic that's happening that we can't see, that some can't see, some others do. And what's happening is that even when I enter this room, what's dormant in you and that is active in me will now be active in you. And what's dormant in me and what is active in you will now be active in me. It's a chemistry. And the insights come from having a crew and seeing how we all uplifted each other and how we all, upgraded each other. And we have the ability. Some things are dormant in me. And when I come in your presence, I borrow from your activation. Same, vice versa. So even when I go into a room to teach a class, what's dormant in others now becomes activated because I'm present. I'm activating that space. So just being around me, that's what we call a cipher. Whether it's a talking cipher, whether it's a dancing cipher, right now we're just ciphering, So we borrow each other's activations in the cipher. And that's why some ciphers are a rare chemistry. Like it only goes down with these brothers. Like when I get with Orb and Free, you know what I'm saying? And when we cipher, it's a whole different chemistry. Do you know what I mean? So people bring these activations. So I just feel like I'm an activator, As soon as I enter the building, the jam, the street, the library, the gas station, I'm an activator. I activate dormant, memory.
So you brought up an interesting point about sharing connections through a cipher. Do you activate a certain part of yourself, whether you're in a battle or a cipher?
Well, see me, I even though it's a battle, it's the same thing to me as just going out in a cipher, or even going out just displaying any time. it's a display of yourself. You know, even if you're battling somebody else, you're really just trying to show the best of yourself, you know, and activate them. And so in a battle, I'm not doing anything different than I'm doing in a cipher. I challenged myself. Do you know what I mean? I challenged myself to believe. I challenged myself to demonstrate. I you know, challenged myself to be the best, you know? And as I did that, I inspired others. When they come out after me, you better bring your best, you know? Because that's what I'm challenging. Be your best. Every single go down. Like, I'm going to do my best. You're going to do your best, you know? And who wins or who doesn't, you know, none of that truly matters. It's more about the limitations that you conquered within yourself. The fear, oh, am I going to fall? Oh, they're going to look at me like I'm stupid. Oh, is it? You know, all of that is the first battle. The first battle is the mental one, is the one that's telling you, oh, you're going to mess up, or these people are going to laugh at you, or, you know, all those words come too, all those insecurities come around, you know? So conquering those insecurities as in, no, I'm not going to let you put limitations on me. I'm not going to let my own insecurities, my own limitations stop me. So when you go past that point, I've always experienced bliss in those points where I challenge my own limitations and I challenge myself to believe and have full faith in a movement. Like, say, for instance, when you go upside down and spin in a 90, you got to have faith. It's not a move. It's a demonstration of faith. How much did you believe that you were going to do? Because you got to remember, before techniques and before we had even gyms to practice in, all these moves were faith-based. You know what I mean? It was just like, go up and I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm just going to spin until I fall down, you know? And so you knew the more that there were times where you believed and got one of those 90s and was like, spin a good 8 of those and then came down smooth and was like, wow, I believed, you know? And then those times you had doubt, fall, you know, you can't even do half of one or one, you know? So it really trained you into your faith. It refines your faith in yourself, you know, and believing that you're gonna persevere, that you're gonna go into this situation and you're gonna persevere, you know. So battling is putting yourself in that position a lot.
Wow, that's a very deep breakdown.
That's my personal, you know. Other people do it for other reason, to be fresh or anything. Is like, you know, yeah, I get it, but I passed that.
What are some like mental battles that you've gone through? I imagine as an artist, there's always, or maybe it's common to have a struggle of like, how much time do I invest into this art form versus surviving, right? Yeah, and am I good enough, or am I me even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are some mental battles that you?
Well, those are the ones I explained, is those limitations, right?
Yeah.
Those insecurities. The first battle is the one against yourself. The first battle is conquering that person who says, oh, no, just don't do it right now. Don't go. It'll be more convenient, you know, have nothing, you know, you won't have to explain anything if you don't do anything, you know? So there's a lot of insecurities out there, you know, but I've always battled those insecurities. And that's why not only do I battle those insecurities, I really, destroy them. You know, that's why I'll dress the way I dress. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go into a battle wearing something totally different. One shoe this color, one shoe that color. Because I'm also battling those insecurities of like stigmas and you know what I mean? Like containers and things like, oh, you're supposed to dress this way. You're supposed to look this way. You're supposed to dance this way. You're supposed to speak this way. You're supposed to be this way. No, finding a direct connect to self was always important to me. You know, so I was always trying to get away from all the seaweed and find the true source of, you know, a clear self and a clear perception.
Did you ever reach a part where you felt alone from just being yourself and not having others, people around you, or a community, or even your parents be able to like, yeah, that's really cool, or we can't recognize you anymore?
You know what? I think that those kind of questions, and like say with even the insecurities things, I since I'm from the ghetto, I had conquered a lot of those things a long time ago, you know, as a young kid, like probably 5-6 years old. I was already flamboyant. I was already outgoing. I said I was like a street fighter. I was never scared to fight. You know, I would fight a big guy, I fight a bit, it didn't matter. I was always willing to find out, you know, to experiment, to see, does this work? Did that kick work that I, you know, practice on, or that punch, that duck, that, you know? So I was always willing to throw myself in the petri dish and experiment and find out what works and what doesn't. So that's the same thing like with the dance and even battling people. I wanted to see what was effective, you know, and what really worked and what really, you know, captured that feeling. So yeah, despair though, I think, you know, being from the ghetto, just overcoming that, it gave me such an awareness. And I think that's why the scene is so different nowadays, because you got a lot of people from suburbia running this culture. And they're not from the ghetto. They don't know the ghetto. They didn't experience the ghetto. They weren't raised in the ghetto. They have no connection to poverty. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's why it's very important to have those who were raised in the ghetto and went through that upbringing. They're consulting and they're helping out with these other people who are from suburbia, you know, which is nothing wrong with being here. That's privilege. That's a blessing. But those who are ghetto certified really deserve a place at the table, in a sense of infrastructure and innovation and showing which way this should go, because the ghetto people are the ones who innovated. You know what I mean? We were forced to. You know what I mean? There was no other option. It was either you win or lose. You either live or you die.
That's like the hallmark of creativity, right? When you're
And against the corner.
when you have tons of limitations, you figure out what to do.
You gotta
what
fight
you have.
your way out of the corner. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the perspective of when you are in a battle. What about when you're judging? Like, how do you?
When I judge, it's I'm looking for who's brave. Do you know? Because I understand form and I understand that dance, it's similar to martial arts. It could just be a kata. You know, it's someone going out there doing a kata, and you're like, it's so rehearsed and it's so, you know, refined that they've done it so many times. But were they brave to be in the moment? I understand that there's something to harvest in the moment that a lot of people are afraid of. So they do these pre-rehearsed things. And I've always allowed myself to be in the moment. And some repetition may come out, you know, and like that, because it's just instinct. But to harvest the pure moment, that moment is never going to exist again. It's a rare moment. It's here and then it's gone. So to harvest the energy that is possible from that moment, that's what I look at when I'm judging. I look at, was he brave enough to let it go and just to be in the moment? And then I see the people who are just doing it correctly, you know? So I judge, you know, and to a certain amount of technique, I'll be like, okay, yeah, they won on technique, but they weren't brave. You know what I mean? So a lot of people, that's how I look at it. And then I also look at innovation. Who's creating and adding to the vocabulary, and who's just regurgitating what's already been done correctly, you know, because there is a lot of that, and that gets favored a lot. And I'm the guy on the opposite. I'm the innovator. I want to see chances being taken, and it takes bravery to take those chances, right? Because you're in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and your mistakes are real time. So you gotta be brave when you're getting out there on the limb and being like, hey, it's like being naked. You know, you're fully exposed. You're like, I'm not hiding nothing. Look at, this is who I am. Accept me or not.
Yeah, this seems to really track with a theme of what you're saying, which is with the choice to be brave also comes the experience of freedom.
Yes. That's why I promote that so much, because I know through freedom causes innovation. So now when someone expresses freedom, we're going to see a whole new movement spawn. We're going to see movement spawn from freedom, like crumping spawns from freedom. You know what I mean? Like turfing spawns from freedom. Oh, you're not popping right. You're not tutting right. You're not. No, it's its own. It spawns from freedom. It spawns from spontaneous combustion, from them being brave. Someone was brave to go out of the box and do some other. You know what I mean? So I recognize that, and I value that more than the katas. You know.
What are some moments in your journey where you really tapped into the brave aspect within your journey? Like, was that when you were first mixing styles together, or in front of a world stage at somewhere? Like, what was that moment for you? I'm sure you had many moments, but what was a moment for you?
There, I wanted to do something different. There was a moment, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the place. See, this is when you have those enlightening experience through movement. And this was an enlightening experience. This is an experience that probably conjured up some DMT. You know what I mean? That conjured up some feeling that I've been chasing that feeling ever since. Okay, it was like a drug. One night, me and my crew, Style Elements, we went to Sacramento. We went to this club. This was like in 92, 93, maybe 92. We went to this club called the Chicken Villa in Sacramento, up on MLK, you know, in the ghetto. And boy, we went in there and we were just all young kids. We were like 15, 16 years old. And they let us in the club because we knew the DJ. And we got in that club. There was like 5, 6 of us together, and we always danced together. It was me, Ivan, Boogie T, Super Dave, Crumbs, Quality. You know what I mean? Like the Style Elements heads, the heads that we always ciphered together. And we got into this cipher, and we created this cipher, and it was so powerful, bro. It was like Ivan went out and did like 50 halos, 50, like around. You know what I mean? Like we were like, what the? He wouldn't stop. And he just kept doing halos in the small circle as small as this room, hitting 50 halos in perfect geometry. And we were just like, oh shit. And then by the time he was done, we were just like, whoa, I was amazed. So I got inspired by him. I went out in the circle. And I thought, I'm like what I was talking about, faith. I'm gonna just throw this. Because I just saw something incredible. I saw 50 halos. So I jumped, hit the illest 90 I ever hit in my life. And I was only like 15, 16, right? So I've been chasing this feeling ever since then with the 90s. I caught the vortex. I caught 0 point gravity. Do you know what I mean? Where I was, and I also experienced something I can only explain called still motion. Because I was still, but I was moving. But my mind was still. I was in the center of like a tornado. And so I jumped up, I went ham, boom, hit this 90. Rocket science, bro. I hit that vortex and I caught it right at the perfect part on my palm. Was perfectly centered. Bro, I never did so many 90s in my life. And so fast, like, but like I said, I hit so fast, and I was still in the center of it. I was motionless, but everything around me was moving. And I remember something happening in my brain where I was moving slow. But I wasn't, you know, to me, it was slow motion. It was kind of probably like a near-death experience. You know what I mean? Where you see your life flashes before your eyes and everything like that. That was similar because my body was spinning so fast and had been in a position that it never had been. It probably thought I was in a car accident or, you know what I mean? Like the things got released. Something got released during that time. I hit those 90s, man. And I just kept going. And I remember I was doing so many. I was like, oh, shoot, I'm going to die. Like I'd never been here before. I'm in uncharted territory. I'm going to die. Like, how am I going to come down? Am I going to break my... These are all thoughts that are going through my head while I'm spinning. And I'm stuck in this, right? Because I locked my arm. And I'm like... And I'm going... I'm like, oh, shoot. How am I going to come down? Like, how am I going to come out of this? Am I going to break my neck or anything? And I was so scared that I end up just putting my hand down and stopping myself. Very controlled. Like... And it was on my feet. Like... And then as I stopped and was on my feet, instantly got lifted up by everybody. They picked me up and walked me around the club. And I was a little kid too, so I was like a little trophy, you know, because they had never seen that before. My homeboys never seen me hit a 90 like that before. They never seen me get into that space, you know what I mean? So they picked me up and walked me around, and everyone was just like, like I had the whole, and it was a club with people dancing, you know what I mean? They weren't paying attention to us, but when I hit that move, everyone was just like, what the and I became a champion. You know what I mean? Like, I became the trophy. I got hold around like this guy fucking, he believed, like he pulled off something incredible in this moment on a dirty floor at a club. You know, I never expected to experience this. So I knew from then that I was always chasing that feeling, and that had upgraded me to knowing that when I believe, when I demonstrate faith and I do believe, then something phenomenal is going to happen. So that's why I was always willing to just jump in and see like what's going to happen this time. What move is going to come out this time? What exciting thing am I going to feel this time? And so I would always like donate myself to the circle, to the cipher, not planned. It can't be planned, because once you premeditate, you're already messing with the destiny. You know what I mean? So you got to exit every plan and let destiny happen while you're in there. And so that was an enlightening experience for me that I'll never forget.
Wow, what an incredible moment.
Yeah. That's what I say. Something must have happened. Like I said, the only thing I can relate it to is maybe near-death experiences. When people get into car accidents, they start, and then everything slows down and you're like, you get to think out your life. It was very similar, So I think I induced that in myself by throwing my body fully immersed, and the unknowing too. My body never been in that before. So it was probably releasing DMT and dopamine and, have an enlightening experience from that.
It's really incredible what the body and the mind and the spirit can unlock once it becomes one for that moment.
I felt 0 point energy when I was telling you that. Zero gravity, bro. And still motion. So I had an enlightening experience at 14, 15, 16 years old. I was having an enlightening experience. There was times I never hit a 90 like that, but I would always hit head spins like that, because I could spin on my head really well. So I would catch drills. And so I would get those feelings too during the drill, but never like when you're uplifted, over in one hand. And it was just another level of connection. And it was like being at one with the moment and harvesting that energy that's in the now. And I'll never forget that, and I've been enlightened by it, by that experience.
Wow. That's freaking amazing. So fast forward to the Remind of today. What works, or what do you feel most activated? Like what do you feel like your purpose has transitioned into today's?
As a reminder, I am my name, and it was an affirmation that followed me since I was a kid, and it's funny how it plays out into everything that I'm about. Just like you said, your name, how it played out to everything you're about. Remind is everything I'm about, because like I said earlier, I don't believe in evolution. I'm not into that theory. I'm into the wholeness and the completeness that we are here complete. We're just remembering, and we're just unlocking these limitations that have been placed on us from a long time of being on this planet and experiencing trauma, loss, grief over and over again, that it had kind of hardened humanity into a sense of forgetting who and what they are, And so I feel like I'm more into that, more into my purpose of being a conduit and being someone who is activated and being able to inspire activation in others.
Okay, so I want to ask you more about your view on evolution, just because I'm curious about another angle that you may be meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like there is no growth, or there's no betterment of, or how does the two make sense together, right?
I can explain it as in or my philosophies come from creation, creator. And if we were built in his likeness, there's many traditions and oral stories and scriptures and different things from all around the world and different belief systems. But we all can get into some commonality of having a creator, right? And if we were made in his likeness, and some scriptures and some things that they say, then that's where it comes from. It comes from being made in his likeness and knowing that we are made in the image of the Most High. The Most High. And he gave us his technology, which is his likeness, his body, the word. We are light. So I know that that's complete. That the creator is complete. Creator is not, lacking anything. It's wholeness. And so I believe we come from that wholeness. And that's where the philosophy comes from. And of being whole and not missing anything, not needing anything, that we were given every single thing that we already need, and we're complete. And that doesn't mean no growth. What a lot of people associate growth with is what I associate remembering. You know, just remembering what we are, remembering who we are, remembering how to use these plants, remembering how to use these materials.
So it seems, or in nature, there's lots of evidence that evolution did happen, whether a bird is shaped a certain way because it's most aerodynamic, or same thing for a fish. And like, I think a lot of airplanes are just modeled after birds or fishes, right? Because it's the most aerodynamic shape.
Yes.
So in nature, there's lots of trajectory of evolution, while you're saying that humans are more presented as a complete. So in that sense, would you say that we're somehow connected to, but not a part of nature?
No, okay, there's in Lakota way, okay?
Yeah.
I could say, Mataku Yewasi. And that means we are all related. Everything is related. We're related to metal. We're related to the earth. We're related to the sky. We're related, every element that we have in us. So yeah, I we are complete. That's what I understand. And that's what I feel, and that's what I remember. You know, and technology, like when you say evolution, even airplanes being modeled after birds, but you know, you can take a look at the Vermanas that were way more advanced back then, that had a different type of geometry, a different type of things that people aren't even tapped into yet, on so far as aviation and ancient flying machines. So I just have a whole different philosophy, and it's fun to share, you know, because I know that a lot of people are looking at this perception. So I like to share that perception of, like, even when I say, when I don't believe in evolution, people are like, what the heck, you don't believe? And I'm like, yeah, I don't. I think that's man-made. You know what I mean? Like evolution, because like I said, they can't even explain the pyramids, brethren. They can't even explain it. They don't know how it was built. We were more technologically advanced back then. And when it comes down to philosophy, when it comes down to ideology, and I feel that Adam did those things. You know, I feel like the first men did those things. And they left those instructions on, you know, they would, of course, first man would leave instructions. Of course, the ancient man would leave instructions on how we were built and how, and you know, what we're here to do. I believe a lot of those pyramids are mathematical instructions. And so, yeah, that's where my philosophy comes from on evolution, of why I don't believe in it, and why I think it's and I know things get refined, you know what I mean, but a bird doesn't stop being a bird, you know what I mean? Like it just, you know, and then I know there's these philosophy, fish and lizards, and see, that's what I mean. I'm like, I'm not, each to its own kind, you know. That's the same thing that, like, you know, these are all written by a lot of time conquerors. You know, a lot of this history is written by conquerors. So I look into the knowledge of self and the wisdom of self. And I'm very aware that I am an ancient man. Just like you're an ancient man. I'm talking about from the beginning of time. I have that data in me. You have that data in you. Whether you have access to it or not is up to you if you do the work. But those who have done the work realizes those things and reads that instead of the text. You know what I mean? We go into the DNA of it, go into the ancient memory, into the biology, into the science, the metaphysical, and we get our data from there, from the records that are stored. Just like everyone knows about the cloud now. You know, you could store your pictures and your data in the cloud. Oh, it don't even exist, right? It's the same thing that what natives were talking about when we made that dream catcher. We were showing the web of life. We were showing the web and the net that exists and throughout the whole planet that you can have access to this information. So we were talking about those things. It's just like, that's why I was excited to come here and share, because native indigenous technology, that's where I'm at right now. And I see how I can relate more into how we were and why we were the way we were.
Would you say that that's a pillar of your interest and work nowadays, is to connect more people to that awareness to the past, and going outside of the scope of breaking, if you will?
Oh yeah, well, my whole mission now is just is mastery, right? It's not only mastery on a dance level or an art level, but a mastery in a life level. Mastering life as a dance, right? It's similar to the dance. Mastering the form, mastering the efficiency. Like, say for instance, the reason why I have my certain type of philosophies will be explaining all these things. Like, the most efficient thing to me, and when you can shave all this stuff down to be the most efficient human being, you're going to turn into an indigenous man again. That's all it's going to lead to, is you going back to and being indigenized, because they had it. There was the most reciprocal and harmonious way of living on the land. The way living with the resources, not destroying the river, but living with the river. Not destroying the waterfalls, but living with the waterfalls. Not destroying nature, but being at one with nature and being a true being, interfacing with, because, they may not look at it as technology, but us native people, us indigenous people, look at it as technology. We look at that eagle feather as a high form of technology. When you look at that eagle feather, some see it just a feather, but what we see is a router, is an antenna. It's something that's connected to the electric magnetic field of the earth. Something that that you could feel it. Something that cuts wind, cuts ether. So that eagle feather means to us the highest form of technology. Raw material. Not altered in any way. Just taken out, and so seeing nature and seeing the things like nature, like a seashell, technology. Like, if you know how to utilize these things, you're going to learn, like, say, for the instance, the eagle feather. The eagle feather, a lot of people misconceive. They don't understand and look at it as technology, but that eagle feather is connected to the electromagnetic field of the planet. Still, that eagle had flied over the Himalayas.
This reminds me of, speaking of eagle feather, I forget where I was in my childhood, but I somehow ended up being an audience member to I don't know what the official name is or what the tribe was from, but somehow as a kid, I somehow was orbiting and witnessed to an indigenous tribe doing a dance with wearing a bunch of eagle feathers, right? Like full on eagle, not just the headdress.
Interfaced.
Yeah. And then, which is its own thing on its own. But I soon noticed wild birds started flocking around what we were doing. And I was just like kind of blown away. Like, well, these wild birds are actually flying in a circle around these dancers. So that experience always really stuck with me. And what you're saying right now also reminds me of a conversation I had with Indigenous Hawaiian that I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said something along the lines of, when you see marine life, for example, because Hawaii is an island, when you see marine life, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, right? And then we were going back and forth, and he's like, well, if you see it as resources, then you're viewing it through capitalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he says a lot of Hawaiians, we view it as their relatives, brothers and sisters.
Exactly. And just like I was talking to you about your cat, you know what I mean? That's an accessory to you, to your being, and you borrow from its senses. It has extra senses. So you're smart to have a cat to borrow its senses. Even borrow its calmness at times,
Yeah, all this is very interesting to me, and I'm curious about what you had to unlearn to kind of what mass, or what did you have to unlearn to like have more access to this view?
Remember what I was saying earlier when I came here before we did the podcast? I was talking about how disabilities sometimes become your strengths and your superpowers. So your disability becomes your superpower. My disability to function in society became my superpower. I don't I'm not a capitalist. I don't look at things like a capitalist. I don't look at things like the society looks at things. I'm not social. I'm not, I'm not broken. Do you know what I mean? Because I believe that also education does to a lot of people is it breaks people. You know what I mean? Make sure it breaks you. Make sure it makes you sure you're submissive, And so I didn't submit. So a lot of times people saw me getting kicked out of school, going to the principal's office as someone who was a trouble kid and bad, but I was just aware. I was just aware I didn't want to be taught lies. Because 1 and 1 don't make 2. If one is a male and one is a female, they make infinite. I already knew that when I was a kid. You know what I mean? So I knew that the way that math was structured was also, it didn't add up for me. You know what I mean? I didn't understand going through all these processes. It was like more they were trying to confuse me more than trying to give me a solution. So this is my outlook on the way I saw schooling and education, because I was like, no, that's not the way it works. No, Columbus didn't discover this place. Already right there. I'm like, no, he didn't. I already know this. I know that they're from Europe. They're Europeans. So you're trying to tell an indigenous story on this land, and these guys are from over there. These guys are the conquerors. These guys are the, invaders, so to say. And so just more, I could say, indigenously intelligent. And they're still trying to figure out how we did our pyramids. I know how we did our pyramids. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the difference. They think they're smarter, but they're not. They're not smart to poison the river. They're not smart to poison their water. They're not smart to defecate in the water, and that's not smart. That's not smart putting all those meds in the ocean. You know what I mean? But these guys think they're so smart, right? Rocket science and rocket and bomb technology and nuclear bombs. That's not smart. That's stupidity to me. So you see what I'm saying? So my disabilities become my superpowers. I didn't subscribe to society. I didn't subscribe to this. I didn't subscribe to capitalism. And hip hop was a vibration and a freedom that I identified with. And I was like, that's it. I didn't have no question. I was already fully embodied and fully aware. And what I talk about here is this other intelligence. You know what I mean? It's more of a spiritual intelligence. And a lot of these, say, invaders have this more of like, well, honestly, they don't have none to me. A lot of this stuff that's so-called upgrades and everything is just stupid destruction. All these warplanes and using something that's supposed to get people from here to there to something that blows up other people. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's not evolution. You know what I mean? That's de-evolution to me.
So you many interesting things. You mentioned how the pyramids are built, so I'm curious about asking you about that. And also, we
built the pyramids.
Still are in a society, right? So, like, what aspects of society do you subscribe to?
Indigenous. I know that we had it right the whole time. A lot of people, they paint a picture of indigenous natives as in we were always at war with each other, or we didn't know what that was, and that's why we didn't use it. They don't understand how sophisticated and how intelligent we really were. They had no understanding. And, so I subscribe to that. And that's what I know. And I know it so well that I'm willing to live and die for it. Like what I say is, this is the way. I'm here to educate people on what us indigenous people know and what we hold. And we hold technology and we hold upgrades. And we actually been healing people this whole time that we've been persecuted and oppressed and civilized and so-called conquered, that natives here on this continent have been giving medicine to all the children of these oppressors. Because we know we got to do the work, that we got to upgrade the way they think, that you can't own a piece of land. Do you know what I mean? Like this whole civilization with buying and owning a home and killing people to do so, when we already knew that was impossible, that you couldn't own the land. And then we asked, they asked to buy the land for us, right? They were like, oh, we want to buy your land. And we go, okay, how does this work? Do we sell this by the pound? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do? We're going to sell you this by the pound? And when we sell you this, does the sky come with it? See how us natives were thinking? We weren't thinking that way. We don't own the land. What are you going to do? Sell it by the pound? What are you going to do? Sell the sky with it? We didn't have that philosophy. We were home. We were already complete. The earth was our home. We didn't have this territorialism. That's a disease, a civilized disease where people say that they're so civilized but act so uncivilized, right? So that's where I'm at. I'm with the indigenous movement, and I see that we as indigenous people had all the answers that society is looking for. If they just sit down and listen and ask the right people, we can upgrade humanity. We can help them. We could say, hey, this is how you take care of the river. This is how you take care of the land. This is how you take care of the sky. This is how you take care of the animals. A lot of people don't understand that buffalo, we were not buffalo hunters. They're hunter-gatherer, Indians, native people, hunter-gatherer. We weren't hunter-gatherers. They don't understand that those buffalo was our herd. We were buffalo shepherds. We were not buffalo hunters. The whole plains was our agricultural project of buffalo. Those 100 million buffalo we raised. We shepherded them. If you even look at it, we had the hook. You know what I mean? We carried that shepherd. We were on a horse and we shepherded our buffalo. That was our herd. We were shepherds. See, so there's the difference. That's the mentality that they fed society, that we were just these hunter-gatherers. We didn't have anything. Corn is a native invention. Corn doesn't exist in nature. Native people engineered corn as a superfood. See, this is technology. Corn is a technology of a native man. Corn don't grow in Africa. Corn don't grow in Europe. Corn didn't come from anywhere. Corn came from here, from the indigenous wisdom of how to make a superfood. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. All of these things were built. These pyramids were built because we were eating the most nutritious superfood. Every bite of an apple, every bite of a pear, every bite of an orange, a corn, you were having a DMT experience. You were enlightened. That's how much nutrients was in our food before. Now they only got a few species of apples, two species of potato. You know what I mean? Like before there was thousands of different species of different things, and they had messed with it. You know what I mean? With the indigenized technology. They didn't understand our technology was in our grapes. The technology was in our corn, the technology. Like even look at a corn. If you really look at it, look at all those colors and rainbows. It looks like it's speaking a binary language. You know what I mean? It looks like it's DNA. Looks like it's coded. Looks like it's got information on it, zeros and ones. So it's programmed, So I just look at indigenous people as way more sophisticated than this so-called civilized technology or civilization.
Well, that's a lot, definitely a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying we were activated, bro. You want to know how they took over this country so easy? Is because, can you fight on DMT? Can you fight on ayahuasca? Can you fight on peyote? Can you fight on all these cactuses and these herbs? We were all medicined up. When they came here, we were in augmented reality already. And they came here all sick and poor and cold, and we helped them because we were so sophisticated. So when they came with their guns and just shot us, we didn't even know what that was. We were just like, nobody screamed or yelled. They were just like, huh? Like, what are you doing? We weren't in a violent, they came from Europe so much. War and conquering was their culture. That is their culture. War is European culture. So when they came here and they brought that here, and they had dropped our frequency from being in an enlightened state to having to defend ourselves. So then we did have to go into a lower plane of existence. Why do you think they took over California so quick? Those pomos, those yokuts, those wintons were all on DMT. The acorn. You know what I mean? The pineal gland. They were so advanced. Put it this way, the California natives were so advanced, they barely had weapons. That's an advanced society. That's when you reach the pinnacle, when you don't even have no weapons, where war is outdated. You don't solve problems by war or conflict no more. You solve them in a whole nother way. That's technology. That's an advancement. And that's why those Spaniards, within 1 or 2 years, almost everyone was gone here. The reason why is because we didn't fight back. They just stood there with guns and just killed everybody. They think people got rich in California from the gold rush. No, they got rich from killing Indians. I don't mean to talk about this horrific stuff, but this is real. This is how California got wealthy. It was $5 a head back then in the 1800s.
You mean for scalping?
For scalping. So they got rich from killing natives here, and there was millions gone in 1 or 2 years. Created the repeating rifle, sat on a hill and took out whole villages. You know what I'm saying? So I know what happened here. I got Pomo cousins. I got, my auntie's Winton. I know the history out here in California.
Did you learn of this through oral?
Yes, oral, and like I said, when you're activated, you can interface. And I interface with environments everywhere I go. I interfaced in Italy. You know what I mean? Wherever I touch, I can interface. I could download the kind of memory of the land because Earth remembers and Earth records. Earth records everything. Think about it. Like film is made of iron oxide. It's made of clay. It's made of earth. So everything burnt that used to be this technology burnt on film, that's actually burnt on clay. Earth remembers. Earth records. All this VHS tape and things that are iron oxide, the red earth, it's recorded on earth. You know what I mean? Plastic and with the oxide, all these chemicals made burnt into earth. Earth is doing that right now, all the time. Earth records everything. That's how I get this information. And when you're able to tap in and interface that way and truly indigenize, then you're going to gain access.
Speaking of Earth, what are your thoughts on single-use plastics?
Abomination. You know what I'm saying? Abomination, outdated technology, unnecessary, hurtful, harmful to everything. You know, they're pulling things. They're just misusing the Earth's blood.
Okay, so considering that so many folks, millions of people are living in cities, which is not necessarily the most accessible place for accessing nature and the land, like what advice do you have for people living in the city?
Well, I think also cities can be upgraded and be utilized the way they truly are. Because, brother, that's why I was trying to tell you, I'm in a very special place right now where I'm seeing past the veil and I'm walking in two realms as we speak right now. I'm walking in these realms and I don't see just a city. I see a motherboard. You know, I see, okay, and I know that even those skyscrapers, guess what they're made out of? Ancestors. Everything is made out of ancestor. There's been so many people who lived on this planet throughout time till now, from the beginning till now, animals, humans. Every piece of soil is an ancestor. Those are people who have returned to dirt. We come from the dirt, right? We return to it. So even those skyscrapers that are made of metal and earth, I know that there's ancestors in there. You know what I mean? Like it's made of people. All this earth, what are we made out of? Earth. So if things are made out of earth, they're ancestors. So when I even see a city, I look at them skyscrapers and I know that, and I look at the streets and I look at them as ancestors. And I could see the crystal quartz in the ground shimmering, and I could see, and I look at that as interfacing, as a motherboard, as able to download and upload memory. So I'm more, tuned. So I don't look at it as a bad thing. I look at it as just being utilized in its correct, manner. And cities can be utilized. They should be, but I think that first comes the activation, and a lot of people are being, disconnected through stress and trauma. And that's where we see a lot of this problem is a lot of disconnection and trauma causing amnesia. So people just forget. Now, there's evidence of if you get hit in your head, you can have amnesia, right? Blunt force trauma. You can forget everything, right? Go into a coma, and similar, but you can be awake, and you can have a traumatizing experience that hits you similar to blunt force trauma, but it causes the same amnesia. You may have not got hit physically on the head, but a situation rocks you in the same way. So you have amnesia. And a lot of people are in that state of amnesia, and not just from now, but generational amnesia, where their generations from 7 generations have amnesia. They don't have no idea how to do what they were supposed to do, what they were programmed to do, and what we were put here to do. So me having that indigenous awakening and that in me, that's what's active, and that's where I have a bigger view of just the social way of seeing things, of seeing the cities and society.
Yeah, well, I was a lot to take in once again. What?
I'm sorry, bro. I know I'm just there,
Yeah, no,
I'm grateful that
we're here to
you're willing to have the conversations with me.
Yeah, we're here to. It's all about access to information, So that's one of the points of this podcast is. So this is definitely a very new and unique way of seeing things.
Bless up. Oh, and you wanted to talk about the pyramids. I could tell you about that too.
Yeah, the pyramids. Like, tell me about what do you know about the pyramids?
That's what I'm saying. Like, they try to say aliens built the pyramids and, all these things. And they're trying to take the power out of the indigenous man's hands. And us indigenous people made those pyramids. And we made those pyramids, like, once again, I talk about the Ethernet. And I talk about the supercomputer that is the land, interfacing with the land, the quantum computers by 1 billion times over. When you look at those sites like Machu Picchu, when you look at those pyramids, like, those are all a way to interface with the earth even deeper. Those are all big computers. They're all big quantum computers, and even computers mimic the way the space in between things, learning about the power of space and harvesting energy in space, because space is the most energetic thing. Just this cubic bits of space, right? There's research on that. So when I say I know how the pyramids were built, my DNA remembers it. My ancestors built that. Your ancestors built that. We did that. And how we did it is we did it on another plane. We didn't do it here. It settled here. But it's similar to how you designed a place in Photoshop or Illustrator. You know what I mean? The blueprints are made in this other realm. And then you drop the frequency and it settles here. So it's made in a different realm. It's not made in this realm. It's just got settled in this realm. Okay, so that's how you can't explain those 100-ton blocks being, because they weren't made here. It's not. That's why they the quarry got cut over here, and they just don't. And you think about, these are Neanderthals trying to explain an extraterrestrial. You know what I mean? So it's like
another plane. Do you mean a consciousness plane, or do you mean like alien,
like computer? Just like I said, technology is barely touching the realm of where we already were. It's barely scraping it. So just like how you can, like I said, you can go into a VR world, design something in there, and then go get it 3D printed and then fabricate it, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing, but it's just in a spiritual realm. There is the cloud. There is a interface in another dimension that you could go in. You design there. You activate there. You communicate there. You go to the library there. You get information there. But as they built in that plane, like I said, that's why they can't explain even the cuts, bro. They can't explain none of this. This is nothing. There is no cuts. There would be debris. You know what I mean? Like, so these are like 3D printed into another realm. And that's why the mathematics is they're saying it's computing, right? Like, you can't, the mathematics are too correct, because if they were even off 1 centimeter here, by the time they got to the top, it would have been a feet, that was separate. So it's showing the sophistication of our technology.
Yeah, the precision and sophistication and complexity is, I think, generally agreed upon. Mm-hmm. I want to understand what you're saying. So you're saying that these structures were willed into existence from another plane, or
yes, they were built with meditation. They were built in that You know, that many people went in there and we knew how to do that. I mean, you know, there's documents of like Tibetan monks drying sheets in 60 below, steaming, drying the sheet, a wet sheet on them with power of meditation and power. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And sometimes people, they don't understand meditation. They don't understand someone sitting there for hours in a temple doing this. And they don't understand that person is not bored. He's actually surfing the web. Just like you're on your phone for hours and can't understand how long is it, even time didn't, oh, I was on there for 3 hours. It's the same thing. Meditation, you get access to the Ethernet, another realm where, like I said, the internet kind of explains a lot of spirituality. It's the evidence of a lot of spirituality and spiritual practices on where we go, remote vising, telepathy, you know, like all of these things that are in the Akashic records, you know what I mean? Libraries that are in the cloud. And that's why I talk about the land and interfacing with the land. There's a lot of things that are recorded in the land too, in the rocks, you know, in the rivers, in the water. So I'm just saying it's like, yeah, they don't understand how sophisticated us indigenous people really are and how the tech is. I mean, think about it. Tech, Aztec, Zapotec, Toltec. This tech comes from here. Even all of this stuff in the Silicon Valley, this is indigenous technology. It wasn't made over there. It's right here. It's spawning from out here. And why did they call it a Silicon Valley? Because it's like a quartz crystal underneath all of us, like a silver surfboard, like a crystal surfboard underneath all of us right now. Think about it. Star Wars spawned from here. Every single thing in the on technology spawned from here, from YouTube to Google to Yahoo to the internet to Apple to Microsoft to all of these tools we use to interface with this internet, right? This is all indigenous technology, brother. That's all I'm saying. It's barely this much of indigenous technology. The internet is indigenous technology.
I definitely see the value in tracing the roots of things. But how would you, I guess, have more structure in what you're saying while still giving access to that info, you know?
Well, the thing is that all of this access that I have, many people will never see the ceremonies that I've been and how I got this access. You know what I mean? So it does take work. You got to refine it, just like it takes that computer chip to be super refined. That mirror in there, it has to be that wafer, you know what I mean? It has to be perfect. It has to go through its refining, its forging, right? Just like that samurai sword. That samurai sword, it could go in so deep, man. And so it's the same forging like that. You forge yourself like a samurai sword and you become the technology and you become the tool to interface. But it takes rigorous training, rigorous ceremonies, and you have to go beyond that realm. And that makes me different than a lot of other people is I have participated in many ceremonies that people will never see. You know, you can't go there. It's not to be recorded. It's not thing. But I've been through my indigenous ceremonies.
Are these
my certain things?
Are these Cheyenne and Lakota ceremonies?
Yes.
And
I've been blessed, and I'm so grateful to be Cheyenne and Lakota and have access to that specific story and enlightenment. That's why we share with the world.
So you mentioned that your mom is full indigenous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she also grew up as living the gangster life?
Yeah, she came here from the res like around 14. She moved from the reservation in Lame Deer, Montana to Sacramento. And there was a relocation program back then in the 50s and 60s. A lot of people were getting killed out there on the reservation. It was like political turmoil and things like that. So my grandma was one of the founders of AIM, the American Native American movement, American Indian movement. And so they were trying to kill her, back then. And because she had a lot of wisdom, and she's Sitting Bull's granddaughter. So
your grandma is?
Yeah, and so
really,
yes. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm connected when it comes down to the Lakota and that whole Plains natives. Yeah, I got that. You know what I mean? Like
Wow, she's Sitting Bull his granddaughter.
Yes, and Crazy Horse. Like, we're related to all the great chiefs, you know, Chief Bigfoot, all the Wounded Knee, and all of that stuff that happened to us. We're survivors of that thing. So when you see me dance, you're looking at a straight ghost dancer dance. You know, I'm from that line of ghost dancers, literally.
How did you trace that lineage? Because I hear a common theme for other indigenous is because of colonization, they've lost the trace of like the ancestry trace, you know.
Well, that's why I talk about it. It goes beyond written, you know. It goes way beyond that. It goes into the DNA, and it goes into you learning how to interface with all that memory within you that you hold within you from your ancestors that are uploaded into you. Like I said, just like your eyes remember how your grandpa's eyes were, just like your nose remembers how your great, and you look like them. Similar, we have the memory that of their life embedded in us. So I pull from a lot of that intuition within my DNA. You know, I know there's a lot of information in there because I feel it, you know, and it's unique because I'm also Filipino. So I know that side too, you know, jungle, you know what I mean? Visayan. It's a different thing too. And it's great to have access to that technology too from that islands.
Has your mom also reclaimed her indigenous roots? Because you mentioned that she's more gangster life oriented.
I mean, yes, she was rebellious. She was a wild native. She couldn't be civilized. Just like you saw them wild ones. She was a wild one, and she was not going to be civilized. And see, things native, we remember another way, and we can't live this way. Okay, this way is not for us. This way kills us. Okay, and it's a way that the native man and the native woman protest. They protest with their life, you know, with the way that they live, to show that I'll be anything but white. You know, I'm not going to be white. I'm not a white man. I'm not a white woman. I'm not white. I don't live white ways. I don't do white things. You know, and so there's some people that are still like that. They are not with this white way, this white man's way. She was like that, and she was real rebellious, and she had no give. You know, she didn't surrender. She was like, I'm going to die a wild Indian. I'm going to die a wild native. And I saw that in her and her commitment, and not her love for me or her grandchildren would spare her of that. She was dedicated. She was like a warrior woman, you know? And so I got raised by that warrior woman, man, you know? And she embedded all of this land rights. I know a lot about our native sovereignty because of my mom. She's been on the front lines the whole time with my grandma and my grandpa and the generations. We've been on the front lines of this World War I ever since. Because a lot of people, they talk about these World War I, World War II, World War III. Indigenous people on this continent are still living the First World War. It never ended. It never stopped for us. You know, we're still fighting it. We ain't gave up, and we ain't gonna give up.
What are your feelings and thoughts on reservations?
Straight up, it's a prison. They're outdoor prisons. Straight up. Federally overseen. And, you know, like, put it this way. There's no other people on this land that have a bureau that oversees them. Like, there's no bureau for Black affairs. There's no bureau for Cambodian affairs. There's no bureau for Spanish or Mexican affairs. There's no bureau for nothing. But guess what? We got a Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is the BIA, which in turn basically is the CIA. You know, so it was before the CIA because it's the BIA. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I believe that they're outdoor prisons and they are not finished. And if they don't kill us all, they're going to have to pay us a whole lot of money. They can't afford it, bro. They can't afford to have us around because they owe us so much. Do you know what I mean? We're talking in the zillions. In the zillions. So every native person is the heir to this zillions that I'm talking about. You're talking about gold. You're talking about silver. You're talking about copper. You're talking about water rights. You're talking about air rights. You're talking about everything. The reason why this country is so wealthy is because us natives were so wealthy. We were the golden people. You got to understand that. Us Cheyennes, where they found the most gold is in the Colorados and the Black Hills in California, right? We were so advanced and intelligent that you didn't, like, when they came to our rivers and our streams, they seen gold everywhere. They were like, these dumb Indians, they're not using the gold. They must be so stupid. But they didn't understand we were so intelligent. And we knew that that gold belonged in that river, that gold is a pure conduit. And we understood that the gold in the water turned into nanoparticles as we drank it. And so our nervous system was instant. There was zero loss, zero lag, no parallax. It was from thought to instant. Our warriors had defeated the United States so many times. And the only way that they can defeat us is destroy 100 million buffalo, our food source. That was the only way they could beat us. They couldn't beat. We were too strong, too aware, too fast, too smart. They couldn't outsmart us. We were tactical geniuses. So there had been hundreds of treaties signed because they had been defeated hundreds of times. And the only way they got in was through the kindness of our hearts. We defeated ourselves and allowed this to happen because we were so loving and giving. Like I said, we were having experience. We were on DMT and peyote. Our hearts were open. We were like, come, brother, come here. It'll get warm. Here's a fire. And then we're like, look, they got their little, little different intentions going on, So, yeah, so I don't know how I answer that question, but that's the basic gist of a native expression, a native feeling of how I feel as an indigenous man here. I understand the deeper story here, not the one that was just told, and the one that was fed, but the one that is true and the one that is solid like a rock, it ain't going nowhere, just like that mountain.
So taking out your thoughts on the reservation systems, how do you feel about the actual prison systems in society?
Same thing, It's just that, now they're experiencing what we're experiencing. When it was injustice to one is injustice to all. Everything that's even helping out in those other countries, I don't even want to bring up them wars, but they're seeing what was done to us. Genocide was done here first and nobody was helping. No foreign aid came to our help. Nobody, but they were attacking indigenous people and had a smear campaign like we were the savages, right? Where they're the ones who taught us how to scalp. They were scalping us to get wigs for England. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like George Washington hair was native. You know what I'm saying? All those wigs back in the day, you see all those were native people. Those were native hair. They had got diseases and syphilis and all that stuff in Europe where they all had went bald. So when they came here and they seen us, made them insecure. And then, and that happened. So the prison system is the same thing, man. You know what I mean? It's just modern day slavery to me. And it's a lot of times not about justice. It's, I could say, I can honestly say what I think is about 20% of it is necessary. Because there are some people who are monsters out there.
Have you? Yeah, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had any run-ins with the police or authority?
Oh, hell yeah, bro. I grew up in YA in Juvenile Hall. You know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up in there. Yeah. Like, that's what I'm starting to tell you guys, that I'm ghetto certified. Like, I've been through that walk. I've been locked up. I've been caged. I've been, shackled from my feet to my hands. I've dealt with oppression, all for what? Fighting, for defending myself, or, being in poverty and trying to get out, But yeah, I have experienced the system. I grew up in the system from even a young age.
What would you say to someone, especially a younger person, that's still in or experiencing the system?
Wow. I would say the only thing you can do is go deep. That's where a lot of this stuff come from too. Isolation, being locked up, you know what I mean? Against my will. And I had to go deep. I had to pull from a source that I didn't even know I had. and yeah, just go within and improve, self-improvement. Get rid of the things you don't need, and the things that are stifling growth. Just take a look at yourself, meditate, go deep within, because the answers are there. They're not outside a lot of times. The answers are always within. So I would encourage them to go deep within.
I would assume that nowadays you have less run-ins with authority, right, or with the cops. Did you find a way just to make peace with the system, or find a way to navigate through it?
Well, I just upgraded my operating system. You know what I mean? The way I think and the way I go about things. And I believe things exist on frequencies. And I just upped my frequency. I don't live there. I don't operate on that frequency of confusion and static and conflict. I try to operate, or I tune myself to operate on a harmonious vibration and be in harmony with the people I'm around and the things I'm around. So just upgraded my software, my operating system, my mentality. And also I would say for the young people going through, that kind of tribulations, is also, if you get a chance to travel wide, travel far, learn. And that's what I got blessed with. I got blessed through hip hop culture, through b-boying, a global education. I dropped out of the education system and I stepped into a higher one. And that was the one that hip hop allowed me to learn. And hip hop educated me and gave me a high education to where now I'm teaching. Someone who didn't even graduate high school is teaching and lecturing at colleges around the country and abroad, So it's pretty amazing breakthroughs. I'm teaching at universities, something I used to get kicked out of school for, So incredible.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I want to talk about coping mechanisms, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, in the United States, there tends to be a war on everything. So essentially, war on poverty, war on drugs, war on
war on homelessness.
Yeah. So it's like the capital W word for a lot of our issues, right? Which presents a certain taboo around things,
Mm-hmm.
And I hear from other natives or from other indigenous too that on the reservation there's a lot of despair, and with that comes a lot of substance abuse, right? Did you experience that, or how did you navigate around that, or how did you overcome that?
Oh, wow. Thank you for asking me that question, brother, because these are the things that make people feel uncomfortable to even ask, but definitely this is where I talk about these disabilities being superpowers. Having these struggles became a superpower, Yeah, I grew up the native way, brethren. I seen addicts. I grew up around alcoholics and drug addicts. I myself was born at 6 months because my mom was on drugs. Well, I was in her belly. You know what I mean? And then after I was born, she still was doing that. So I was exposed to a lot of abuse and a lot of dysfunction, especially from what boarding school caused. Do you know what I'm saying? What they did to them in those boarding schools, they wouldn't even speak about. Okay, that's how bad it was. But they would do, like I said, I'd have bars put in my mouth and, be disciplined the same way they were disciplined in boarding school.
So you're saying that your parents experienced these things at boarding school and passed on to you?
Yes, that passed on a lot of those traumas. My grandma, my mom, because I was raised a lot by my grandma, my native grandma, and yeah, I could see, like, say for instance, my grandma, that's from Standing Rock. She never grew her hair long. Her hair was always short to her ears. Like, she never grew. I never seen her with long hair. That was a thing that happened in boarding school.
Yeah, I've read that in boarding school they try to take your individuality. With that comes the long hair aspect of Indigenous.
Yes, the tongue. You get, and that's what I'm saying. When they put the soap in the mouth, and soap tastes so gross, right? It's like, oh man, I can't even have the memories of that. But that was when they spoke their language. So that was being done to me when I was a kid. I get in trouble. I get a bar soap put in my mouth, and I'm like, Like, who else gets this done to them? Like, this is not normal, you know what I mean? Because that taste will stay in your mouth for like days, you know? So I'm just saying is like that trauma that indigenous people went through with boarding schools, the reservation, it trickled on over into us, you know? The great thing is that what we were told when we were young is that there would be a 7th generation that overcomes this trauma. And that's what generation I am. We are the 7th generation. We are the ones that come and heal. And that's why we came with a healing dance and healing songs and healing energy, with a healing community, with a healing vibe. And it's all indigenous. You know what I'm saying? Just like hip hop, they're trying to call it what race created it. No, the land created it. Hip hop is indigenous.
What do you mean by that?
Hip hop comes from here. It's indigenous. It's a native man's program into the land. You know how many people danced on this land before everyone got here? You know, or before any other people got here? You know how many jams we had? Do you know how many circles and ciphers we had all night long? There was no police to break things up. Do you know how many we would have week-long jams where it didn't stop? The music didn't stop, and people danced there, danced until they dropped, danced until they died. Because that's how you would have a vision back then. You would dance until you passed out, and then you would have an experience. So for hundreds of thousands of years, we've been doing this on this earth, on this land, programming these crystals way deep under us. We understood that there was crystals under us. We understood that there was metals and aquifers. We were programming this energy into the land. Rock and roll is indigenous. Hip hop is indigenous. It all comes from here. It didn't come from there. It comes from right here. This vibration that spread out to the world, which they say the Bronx, New York, right? But before that was New York, that was indigenous land. That was native land. That was Iroquois Confederacy. You know what I'm saying? So the natives had jammed before New York was New York and had programmed that land so much with the energy, and that energy that still exists in New York that makes New York special to this day. Think about the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution comes from the Iroquois, the native people. So that's how I know this, and I understand this, and that's why when I think of hip hop, I don't think of any inclusion, like it doesn't include us native people or anything. I remember the program. I could hear it. And all of a sudden you get Andre 3000 going, hey, yeah, hey. Do you see what I'm saying? You're going to get indigenized. This is indigenous. Hip hop is indigenous technology.
Okay, so I do see what you're saying. But I also want to dive into the role of the folks present in New York with the founding of hip hop, right? So there's the music involved. There's the community that really came from the Bronx and so forth, right?
Kool Herc.
Yeah. Have you had these conversations with them from over
Yes.
there? Yeah.
Yes, I've been in a sweat lodge with Kool Herc. After his heart surgery, we took him in the sweat lodge.
Really?
So he used indigenous healing. Yeah, and he got well, right? You see Kool Herc up right now, opening in the museum in the Bronx and all that stuff. So Kool Herc is a good friend of mine. He has an eagle feather and a crystal that I gave him, and he rocks them all the time. So he understands this fully. Like me and him could have this kind of conversation.
Have you spoken to other folks in New York, such as, say, Buddha Stretch, for example?
Not Buddha, but I talked to Wiggles, and Wiggles is a Taino native. So you know what I mean? Like they know, they remember all of this. They understand, and that's why it's done in any way. I mean, come on, when you look at the Soul Sonic verse, what were they wearing back then? Native feathers, painting their face, pow wow. You know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying? This is a long time ago, bro. We've been doing this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And even gang, a part of the gang culture is also a part of like tribal. You know what I mean? It's tribal. So, you know what I'm saying? I when I see this, at me being a native man, I can remember all of this. And I know where it comes from. And I'm from it. I am the earth. You know what I mean? Especially this place. I am animated earth. That's what the Smithsonian finally figured out on what to call the Cheyenne. They were pondering upon that question for over 20 years. What Cheyenne meant. What were we saying when we say, hey, I'm Cheyenne? What does it mean? They go, what does it mean? So we explained it to them. It came up 20 years for them to develop those two words. Cheyenne means animated earth. So that's what I am. I'm water, crystals, earth, dirt, sediment, clay, metal, electricity, water vapor, hydrogen. I'm all the elements. So see, that's the higher way of being when you call yourself Cheyenne. You understand what you are. You understand you are lightning. You are thunder. You are a mountain. You are an ocean. You are that river. You are that animal. You are that sky. You see? It's a whole different way of interfacing with creation rather than trying to subdue creation.
Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying about having a land-based view and also being open to a continuation of activities that happen on the land versus attributing it to humans that live on that land in a specific time period.
Exactly.
But I guess I'm trying to make sure that we're not discrediting the folks who were also present during that time too. You know,
For sure. But that's why I also acknowledge that, hey, they drank the water. They ate the fruit. You know what I mean? They ate the animals of the land. So then therefore they became indigenous too. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you wouldn't have no life if you didn't get indigenized. You know what I mean? So all the nutrients that came here, that's why we got the richest food. That's why our agriculture feeds 80% of the planet. You know what I mean? This was the new world. No, it was just one that was taken care of very meticulously and that had so much harvest and resource. Like you got to imagine we're in their El Dorado. That place where they seen gold, and this is it. This is it.
Have you talked to other folks from New York that push back against this?
I don't care what they say, honestly, bro. I don't care about what those elders say because I know the source. It's just like talking about a little a pond, but I'm talking about the ocean. You know what I mean? And all water is related. It's one water. There's no that water and that water. Water is water. It's one water. It may be in different containers because it's separate, but that's just one water. It's not. So like when I hear the house beat and people talk about, oh, this house foundation and house and club culture, I don't hear that. You know what I hear? I hear doom, 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 doom. That's a native drum, brother. That's a native drum, brethren. That ain't nothing else but a native drum. Let's be honest. Like, let's get cut everything out. That's the one drum. So I don't care what they say. There is no dance step. Dance, you don't do dance. Dance does you when you get to that level, when you're a true dancer. I didn't learn those steps. Those steps were cymatics.
Would you say what you're talking about right now is in similar orientation as owning the land? Whereas if you can't own the land, then you also can't own the dance because
Exactly.
it's just a continuation of whatever
This is ancient.
we can tap into or not tap into.
Yeah, this is ancient. This is ancient. It's here from the beginning. It's a part of the original instructions. Okay, I'll break down basic original instructions. I'll give you 7 basic. Okay, instructions. Cry, laugh, walk, jump, play, make, dance. And that's just 7. It can keep going, but these are the original instructions. So I know that this is just a part of the original instructions. We're supposed to run. We're supposed to jump. We're supposed to make. We're supposed to play. We're supposed to fall. We're supposed to get up. We're supposed to do all of this thing. All of that exists in these dances. All of those movements. It's the original instructions. There's joy in there. There's a smile. There's a, you know what I mean? There's happiness. There's grief. There's sorrow. There's for a second. There's this. There's that. There's a lot of things that you're doing that are like I say, the original instructions when you get into that true dance, not just these forms. These forms I look at, like I said, as katas and exercises of mobility. So then when you do catch the ghost, get in the spirit, that your body is a vessel that's flexible enough that it doesn't get damaged from what the soul wants to do. because the soul wants to move a certain way. And if your body ain't tuned, then you can't make that song. So you got to, like an instrument, you got to tune it so that you are able to articulate the music that you're manifesting. So yeah, I'm way beyond the step. I'm way beyond 90s house steps. Even I was always so rebellious against that form of house and breaking. I was always against that because I had reached a higher level than a lot of those guys. Just being honest. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those guys are good, but I surpassed a lot of. I was dancing on my elbow. You know what I mean? I found a thing on my elbow. I found these guys are just still on the rhythm doing steps. And I'm like, I do that. I could do that too, but I surpassed that. I started dancing on my crown. You know what I mean? I was turning the earth upside down and carrying it on one hand. You know what I mean? You may see me upside down, but I'm upside up. I'm right side up. But the earth I'm going like this to it. You see? It's a whole different mentality. I'm spinning with the earth. So I'll surpass revolutions. So I'm spinning 10 years in advance, 20 years in advance. I've done so much spinning, the earth's got to catch up to me now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that. See the mentality? It's different. It's a higher form of thinking than being somebody's student. Especially a lot of these guys. They're limited. To me, they're limited in the way that they think and the way that they move. It may be catchy in a popular sense, but to me, I'm not that impressed. Because I reached another level, bro. Like I said, a head spin. A lot of these cats they can't do a head spin, bro. You know what I mean? And I've caught 0 point energy where I probably did 100, 200 head spins. So in order to reach that kind of still motion, you got to go deep, And so I went that deep, and when I seen other people, they didn't go that deep. I'm like, oh, they're still in the kiddie pool. That may sound cocky or something, but a lot of cats are still in the kiddie pool to me. I'm in the ocean.
Who else would you say is in the ocean?
Not a lot, bro. A lot of people ain't that brave. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people that I may say that have reached there probably were unknowns. You know what I mean? Because they weren't they do not conform to society. They are the most rebellious,
Would you, or how do you feel about the pioneers of each, I guess, particular movement? Wouldn't that be considered being brave and being in the ocean?
Oh, for sure. Like definitely Crazy Legs, Ken Swift, Mr. Wiggles, the whole Rocksteady crew, the Bronx Boys. I mean, Kid Freeze with the head spins, innovating moves, bringing the 1990 in, Track 2, Batch, basically creating B-boy crews. You know what I mean? Like stopping the gang violence, which is super revolutionary, man, where B-boying, it actually stops gang violence and it actually empowers people, that could end up in prison for the rest of their life, that they end up being somebody productive in society rather than somebody who is out there harming society. So revolutionary, and they do deserve all the credit. I'm saying, when I say what I said, I'm only speaking for certain people. You know what I mean? But there are many innovators and many who have broken the bar. New York City breakers. You know what I mean? Like a lot of trailblazers and a lot of people that deserve, definitely, they are the foundation which we are all built on. Certain people. What do they say? The standing on the shoulders of giants. Yeah, we're doing that.
Yeah, all this is definitely very, very interesting and mind opening. I want to circle back with you earlier when I was talking about the systemic and common struggles that Indigenous people go through, such as substance abuse from having overwhelming amount of despair, right? Do you have a particular view on what substance abuse is, or like from a different vocabulary or lens to look through?
Wow, that's a good question, brother. And that's an insightful question. And my insight on that is that substance abuse, especially with Indigenous people, is because me actually going through that, it's like I said, it's a rebellion. And it's also we can't take this. You know what I mean? We can't take it. No one can. You have to You have to sedate yourself in a lot of ways to deal with this capitalistic society and this invasion. Because let's be honest, that's what's happening here. It's still happening. We are being invaded. And we are on our homeland being put in reservations, which are prisons. And we are told that we should be punished for being here. And that is a lobotomy. That does a mind trick on you where you're a stranger in your own land. And that causes a psychosis, like it would anywhere. You can go to Vietnam and see Vietnamese. You can go to Africa and see Africans. You can go to Europe and see Europeans. You come to this country, you ain't going to see a native. That's how ethnically cleansed this place was. And I'm just half. And that's why I'm a reminder, and that's why I carry that affirmation as being a reminder. And a lot of these times, we had traditions and rites of passage, that we used to go through these ceremonies. And they took that away from us. They made our religion illegal. They even made our dance and song illegal until I think it was 78, where American Indian movement fought for the rights, right? And got our rights back, at least for religious freedom and dancing and singing. So we barely been able to dance again legally in public recently, So we used to have these ceremonies and these medicines that were mind altering, spirit altering, mind enhancing. And they took that away from us. And then they gave us cocaine and meth and alcohol and all of these synthetic drugs. But we're used to being altered. We're used to going through rites of passage because these are dimensions you pass. Each ceremony is a new portal of a dimension of higher self, of learning yourself higher and unlocking different things. A lot of these civilization, we have no rites of passage. There's no ceremony that makes you a man. There's no ceremony that makes you a woman, that tells you when you transition from being a youth to being an adult. There's none of that. Back in the day, we used to have 12 of them. You know what I mean? That you had to go through in your life to become a man, become a medicine man, become a chief. From childhood, you're already going through ceremonies. So a lot of these drug abuse and a lot of these things, we kind of need rites of passage, but we're not getting the right medicine. Do you know what I mean? That's why plant medicine is so big nowadays with Healing Society. Peyote's huge nowadays with Healing Society. Ayahuasca and all that, everybody's going there because they're finally seeing like, oh, rites of passage. Europeans are needing rites of passage. Everyone needs rites of passage to go through that transition. So I think a lot of the addiction and things for Native people, they substituted a lot of our medicines, And so we still are that way, but we just get the poison instead of the medicine.
All that sounds very fascinating and also sad at the same time.
Yes,
how I hear what you're saying, and let me know if this is tracking for you, is essentially your food was taken away, and now you've been given processed food to survive on, right? Food meaning something that's of the land and is made for you in some ways.
Yes,
right. Even one of the definitions of drugs, it never really made sense to me, because one of the definitions is mind-altering substance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you literally take the literal definition and apply it to anything in life, what is not mind-altering? Sugar is mind-altering. Caffeine is mind-altering.
An apple,
right?
A banana.
Heartbreak is mind-altering. So I never really understood that. I mean, I get how some people can identify with that, but if you identify with the definition or understand it, then you would naturally want to like expand and apply. Where else does this apply? It seems to apply anywhere in life, right? It's a very fascinating way of looking at it. I never considered that before, where it's just mind altering in some ways is a way of life.
Yes, and it's ancient. It's like even the mushrooms, even everything. Like I was saying, with our rites of passage, like say for instance, a Lakota tradition, a Cheyenne tradition, right? Similar, is that we would go and harvest a buffalo. Like, see that people say hunt to buffalo. We didn't hunt to buffalo. We harvest the buffalo. You know, there was no hunting. We didn't have to go out there and stay out there for days. There was millions of them out there. There was our herd, you know, we camped next to them. So we would just go out there and pick a buffalo. It wasn't like they, you know, everyone tries to show on the movies and everything like, and it was like, nah, we gathered a buffalo just like any shepherd would gather a sheep. You know what I mean? Like it was that's how we did it. And we would harvest a buffalo. But when we would harvest that buffalo, say a young man, his first buffalo kill, right? When he take down that buffalo, boom. He had to know anatomy. He had to be able to take that whole buffalo apart. Like there's natives that take a buffalo apart like Legos, bro. Like everything is so perfectly. And it's funny too, because when you do take apart a buffalo, you follow the lines. It tells you how to take it apart. You know, you follow the line of every way it was put together, and you take it apart in the way that it was put together. So say, for instance, a buffalo kill. You know how people are doing this, so you say mind-altering things, right? When we take that buffalo down, right away we cut it open and we go for the liver. See, when something is, you know, the liver processes all the chemicals in the body, right? So we eat that liver raw. Boom, that's tradition. So what you're doing is you're on a DMT trip because that buffalo is dying. All that DMT is released into it. It's into its liver. So you die with that buffalo and you eat that liver and poof, and you just sit there with the buffalo and you go through it with the buffalo and you understand, and the compassion and all of that is there, and you're actually speaking and you're interfacing with its being on a whole nother level. You know, you're moving that buffalo to the next realm. You're with that buffalo while it's passing. You see, a lot of people, they don't have no clue that this is going on. They think, oh, you eat the liver, oh, that's gross, that's you know, wild, or and it's like, no, we're having an experience with our brother, with our relation in the most intimate way, and we honor that way. We'll honor it to the next realm. See, so we were having DMT experiences. We were having mind-altering experience with almost all of our experiences, man. Really rich in what do you call this? Spiritual food.
Yeah, the theme I hear what you're talking about is purpose and connection.
Mm-hmm.
With that lens, what is your view on waste and trash? Because it seems like everything has a purpose in one view, and then in another view, there's things that have no purpose, which is trash, or you kind of just discard it away, right?
Yes.
So what's your view on waste and trash?
Well, I think that's a product of just amnesia. You know, that's why I talk a lot about remind and amnesia and all those things. You'll hear that come up a lot because I believe people are having amnesia. People they act like they just got here. Like I just showed up here. From us being documented as them finding the first bones, at least 400,000 years ago. You know what I mean? Carbon dated, and who knows if that's correct, right? But let's say on that philosophy, 400,000 years. So you just got here. You don't know how to clean up your trash in 400,000 years. So that's why I talk about native is the most, indigenous is the most sophisticated you can get. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just like with this VR experience, they're going to get down to where it's just, what do you call it? Contact lenses. You ain't even going to see the technology. It's going to be interfaced with you. It's the same thing with us. The same thing with indigenous people. The technology was the white line on the face. And they didn't know that was a computer chip. It was silicon and this certain mustard seed and this certain red, you know what I mean? A rock that only comes from this area and ground it up into a paste of medicine. And once you put that on your eyes absorb it through here, through these glands and your lymph nodes. And they didn't understand. They see natives understand. This is how people don't understand our language, but we do. And I'll give you some insight on that. When you see a person with a white line, do you know what that symbolizes?
No.
Night vision.
Okay. Yeah, you gotta explain that one.
Night vision. Because that's what that is. That white paint across the eyes is night vision. It's a medicine. It's made of this certain clay and this certain rock and this certain cactus and this certain root. And it's passed on for thousands of years. That how to hunt in the night, how to see in the dark. Night goggles. Those are night goggles, bro. And they just think, oh, it's the paint. They like the ornament. And they don't understand we're interfacing on a whole nother level. You know what I mean? So that's the highest technology, is when they put the computer chip and it's nanoparticles. And it's right there. Then they're going to understand. Just like that dot on the Indian's head. You think that that's not made of some deep medicine that's hitting the pineal gland and nurturing? You know what I mean? So it's like that kind of technology, that kind of interfacing with the organic material, the raw material of the earth, and learning how to utilize it for its properties. And that's what I'm saying. They don't know how to do that. They don't understand. They need the natives to be the head of human resources. They need a native president. They need native senators, because we would say, hey, that's not how you use that. This is how you use it. You know, this is how you use that. You don't do that with that. You do it like this. And if they had natives consulting them, I tell you, we wouldn't have trash. You know, we wouldn't have none of that waste unnecessary that is polluting the ocean, polluting our rivers, polluting all of that stuff. And you know, a lot of us aren't here anymore because back then we fought that hard. We fought that hard, brother. That we gave our lives for this movement, for this revolution, so people could have hip hop. You know, because what does hip hop mean? Conscious movement. That's all. Hip, the knowing. Hop, the moving. The conscious movement. That's what hip hop is. So some people trying to understand, trying to regurgitate to you their perception when it's, you know, altered. I got that pure perception, conscious movement. This is a conscious movement, and it's ancient. It's from a long time ago, and we've inherited it. It's a gift. It's also a gift.
Wow, that's a really amazing. Is there a word for trash or waste in Indigenous language?
Mm-mm. We used everything. The whole buffalo, we used everything. Everything. You know, the bladder was our water, carry our water. You know what I'm saying? The hoofs were our glue. You know what I mean? The hide was our teepee. You know, every single thing we used.
Through talking to you, I'm thinking about the way Indigenous people lived compared to what trends are emerging today. One of which that's just now coming to my mind is the thought of minimalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like living the Indigenous way is the original form of minimalism, where you live purposely and you have what you need, but no excess. And
it's mastery in a way.
Yeah, because minimalism seems like it's really popping up nowadays, right? Like having 2 pairs of pants or one shoe or whatever it is.
Efficiency.
And in a tiny home. But that's essentially like a hut, right?
Yes. And out here in Cali, they were in wigwams, you know?
What are
really
wigwams?
Small, kind of like teepees, but made different, you know, made with cedar bark and cedar wood. And I really study, and I'm really into Indigenous architecture. So I value what people, you know, kind of devalue. And I really value like wigwams, a lot of the Indigenous technology that was already existed out here that was really efficient.
What is your experience like interacting with other Indigenous? As far as, is there anyone kind of giving you like the Bruce Lee treatment, like, hey, don't share this knowledge, it's sacred? And is there folks that's maybe forgot their own roots and they're feeling alienated in their own body? Like, what's some of your experience interacting with other Indigenous?
I have no problem interacting with any Indigenous people because I am very familiar with the trauma. You know, so I understand what kind of psychosis this causes. You know what I mean? It causes a great amnesia. And so when I see people, I understand, oh, okay. You know, if they don't understand, or and then there's tons of Native people that overstand, you know, and understand, and we can have, and we start, we just simple, call it building. We just start building. A conversation isn't a conversation. We just build, you know, we start stacking information. Oh, that and that. Oh yeah, that and that. Oh, this, that. You know, and secrets and insights and all of that stuff. We love, and when I interact with yourself, you're an Indigenous person, you know, interacting with an Indigenous person, is basically, your activations from your country, your attributes from your whole line of being. You have access to that. And maybe even if you're not activated on it, it's in your etheric field, so I'm tapping into that too. I can feel it. And I know it's high grade. They're efficient too. You guys over there were very similar, very, very similar, bro.
Yeah,
Until the invasion, right?
like
Everything changed during the invasions, man.
There is an aspect of knowledge that's available, and there's an aspect of my own ignorance, right? So, for example, I was never taught or knew how to be curious about my roots growing up. It was more so from a refugee mindset, such as just do good in school,
Yes,
to survive and make money, right?
Yes.
It wasn't to
function in society.
My adult mind more so recently, where I'm starting asking questions like, why am I this way, and where does it come from? And in speaking with other folks who are Vietnamese, I don't know or come across too many Vietnamese that actually know a deep history, other than I'm here in America and I'm now a first generation immigrant, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in some ways, the history kind of starts here, or maybe like one generation before you got here. Yeah, but there's not this deep sense of thousands of years of ancestry, right? Which, if anyone knows, feel free to come on the show and talk about it.
Exactly.
But in the sense of waste, in at least as far as the aspects of culinary, there doesn't seem to be a lot of waste in Vietnamese cuisine. For example, the bones we don't throw away. We make bone broth.
Exactly.
We also eat the liver. We'll eat pig feet or
the
chicken
tripe,
feet.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. With having an American mind, I still eat the food, but in growing up with American mind, there was a part of me that was like, this doesn't seem like all that cool, right? It seems more like a poverty diet. But in fast forwarding to more recent research, now they're like, oh yeah, actually bone broth and marrow is really good for your skin. Liver is really good for all these other things that's already naturally a part of our diet, for like all these
stem cells that exist in certain places. Yeah, that feed exact stem cells. Like if you eat liver, it goes to your liver. Like you eat certain foods, it goes directly to that part.
Yeah, we'll even eat blood itself, right? Yeah.
That's medicines at times, not all the time, right? But when you need it.
Yeah, all this is very, very, very fascinating.
Like say for instance, like cactus, like say medicines. You probably only will eat that a few times. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not something that you want to do all the time, that you want to No, it's that one time sometimes is enough. And you'll carry that with you for the rest of your life.
So I haven't I have eaten cactus, but where I want to take this is with psilocybin mushrooms, right? My theory or my questions is like, when most people in studies or in personal experience, also in just a personal experience, eat mushrooms and have a magic experience, right? The common thing that they walk away with is like deeper connection to nature and empathy. And if we're talking about evolution, I always question, how did mushrooms come to be, and why does it work on us the way that it does, where you eat it, it doesn't kill you at all. It's totally not harmful, right? But it totally expands your ability for language, perception, sensory,
mycelium,
to tap in this, right? And so I guess where I'm going with that is being aware of what's already found in nature that we're trying to recreate.
Yeah. Okay, so say for instance, like a lot of on an indigenous level from this continent, like say for instance, like we won't look at a mushroom as a mushroom per se. We look at that as a being, an ancestor. Like say for instance, like I'll just throw in a relationship to like peyote. Peyote we call grandpa, because he's all wise. He carries wisdom with him, similar to the mushroom. The mushroom carries wisdom, and we borrow their wisdom. Same thing like ayahuasca. We're borrowing these wisdoms. We're interfacing with nature, and we're getting their knowledge, and they're teaching us, and they're conscious beings, right?
It really does make sense if you understand where mycelium comes from, which is underneath the soil, and it connects to the rest of the
It's a network.
forest,
Yeah.
right? And it's pulling, communicating through the forest. And when you eat a mushroom, you're communicating, or you're taking in like
Interfacing,
the output of that.
Yes, and that's what I talk about, interfacing. That's where you can relate those things. Is similar to eating mushrooms. You interface with nature now. Now you're interfacing with the mushroom. You're using the mushroom to interface with the rest of the Amazon. You know, like say for instance, like interfacing with the plant medicines and the vine medicines, right? Like you'll start exhibiting features and movements like the macaw. You see when that parrot goes like this, and that's when you know it's having an enlightening experience. It's in, those things are in enlightening experience. They never forgot their instructions. You know, same thing with a mushroom. A mushroom never forgot its instructions. You know, so that's what we're borrowing from. We're borrowing from, again, the original instructions. And those are ancestors. We look at them as teachers, professors, rather than just something psychedelic. You know, it's like, no, this is beyond psychedelic. This is interfacing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And also, I think the word psychedelic has multiple meanings. It's commonly associated now as mind altering, but I think the original word psychedelic means soul revealing.
Exactly. Well, they're seeing, and this is what I talk about, like we were on a high advanced technology in a states of these states of being. And that's how a lot of this conquering happened, because we were in an enlightened state. We didn't, when you get into that state, war is not even a subject. It's not even in your field. Like a mushroom ain't going to war. You know what I mean? These things ain't going to war. So we're in this oneness. We realize we're in oneness, and these people who aren't connected, they don't see that oneness. They see, oh, he paints his face and wears feathers. He must be out of his mind. And it's just similar to that saying, if you can't hear the music, the person dancing is going to look insane. You know what I mean? So it's the same. They didn't hear the music. They didn't understand who and what we were. And we were definitely, like I said, the pyramids are just evidence of how amazing we are. You know, and they're constantly trying to take that away. Aliens built it. You're damn right aliens built it, but we're the aliens. We're from the stars. That's why we never had no problem with race or anything like that. We understand we are star nations. You know, every star represents a consciousness on the earth. You know, and I'll give you this insight between me and you. Who knows if this makes it on? But we are avatars. Our spirit is eternal, and we are interfacing with Earth right now, as in this, using this as hardware. But we're all from the stars. Even the Lakota, we're the star nation. We know exactly what star. We call it the dog star. That's where we're from. We're broadcasting from there. Consciousness is broadcasting. So all of us are avatars. We're here by remote. And that's through the medicines, through the practice, through the ceremonies. That's what has been revealed to me. And when I come back, that's what I'm supposed to share. So racism is a disease. You know what I mean? Looking at life that way, that you got a disease when you think about race, or if you're a race of people or anything like that, because it separates you from the whole universe. You know, we know that we are the universe. We are the stars. We're star nations. We're star people. You know, our consciousness are broadcasting far from Earth, but instantly. We're here in an instant. Be millions of light years away and be here in an instant. That's how high our technology, and that's how sophisticated we are as this being.
Okay, there's so many things I want to ask you. This is all very interesting, man. The most recent thing is racism. How did you perceive that growing up, and when did you feel like you just kind of moved past it?
Honestly, I had a great father. You know, a great father in a sense of like, he raised me well, and I saw the way he interacted with people. I never heard him say one racial slur, never saw him treat anybody different. And he was dark skinned like me. You know, he got discriminated against. So I know he just never wanted to put that out there. And I saw the way that he moved and the way that he acted, and it just made too much sense. You know, be kind to people, treat people how you want to be treated, right? The golden rules.
Yeah, when did you and how did you come across the idea that racism is a disease?
Well, I seen how it blackens the heart. You know, I seen that who those who hate have a black heart. Those who feel like someone else is something that is not supposed to be here, or they have the authority to say you're here and you're allowed to be here or not. I saw that as a disease. I saw that as a sickness. I knew that they were sick in their hearts and their minds, that made them sick to see other people like that, to call other people out of what they are, or discriminate against someone because of class or, clothes or skin color. So, and I was raised in Stockton in the ghetto, and I was raised around Cambodians, Laotians, Vietnamese, blacks, whites, Mexicans, some mixed natives, So all my friends in school and it just, we were all the same almost, you know what I mean? And so I just seen like, there's nothing really different about all of us. We may have traits, but that's it. Everyone is a sun being. Everyone needs the sun. Everyone needs food and water and whether from it's over there or over here, I just see as when people have that indifference and they can't accept other people that are different, like most religious people. I just knew that was a disease of the heart. I could totally see it, because I knew they were disconnecting themselves from the oneness. They weren't understand that they're a part of the one. And they segregated themselves to act like they're this individual thing, and that's impossible. Nobody is an individual thing. We're all one. We're all on this planet, And I don't know why. I was young, and that was obvious to me, very obvious. And I see diversity as a strength. I like Vietnamese. I love Vietnamese culture. I want to learn more about that, because I know you guys have something special, because same thing with natives. We're carrying what no one else does. You know what I mean? Certain Bushmen in Africa, they're carrying what no one else is carrying. Certain tribes, certain people are carriers, and only them carry it. Like the Hopi, they carry that kachina. You know what I mean? Like they hold that. And you ain't gonna get it unless you go over there, And so I understood that. And so I wanted to gain these attributes and have knowledge upon different people's attributes that I saw that they were masters in, like ain't no one going to make a better katana than the Japanese, so you got to study them if you want to learn about forging. And then you learn about the samurai sword, and then you learn about the samurai sword became the cell phone.
What do you mean?
Well, the same kilns that's how they mastered making the microchip, is the silicon wafers and all that was through the kiln that they made the samurai swords.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, through separating with heat, separating the sand and the clay and the making the iron, the ore, and they had defined samurai swords so well, and they got the heat and the separation so well that they learned how to make computer chips and the silicon, the clay chips. Look it up, and
yeah,
you'll see what I'm saying. So
that's like totally new news to me.
So look at how that refined, that technology of sword making refined into actual cell phones.
So if racism is a disease, what is the cure for it?
I think we've been spreading it. Hip hop. Hip hop is the cure. The conscious movement. Hip hop is the cure to racism. Hip hop is the cure to the world, a lot of the world's problems. And that's why it's so attacked and so exploited and so sought after by the whole entire planet. Like, they love hip hop. You tell me who don't love hip hop. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about the flip flop. I'm talking about the soul sonic force. I'm talking about that electromagnetic pulse. You know what I mean? That ripples and penetrates people and brings people together. And something that was passed on from Mr. Wiggles, from Bambaataa to Mr. Wiggles to me. Mr. Wiggles told me a story about he was chilling with African Bambaataa on the tour bus back in the days when they were on tour with them. And he said, Bambaataa said something so profound that he passed it on to me. How wisdom is passed, oral tradition, right? And Wiggles told me, he goes, yeah, one time Bambaataa said this thing to me. He said, like they were asking him how hip hop was created. And he goes, play the drum and your people will come. And that stuck with me and it made too much sense. And I was like, wow, the drum called its people. So if you're called to the vibration of hip hop, you're a cymatic, you're matter, you're earth. The same way a cymatics organizes space and earth and water, it's the same time cymatics and sound is going to organize us. So when you play that sound, you get organized and you go to exactly that spot that you're supposed to go to. It calls you there. Hip hop is the cure to racism because it involves all people dancing together. And you're talking about, okay, say if we had a drone camera and we can scan up, right? We could fly above the event and you will see black, white, Asian, white, Filipino, Vietnamese, Laotian, everyone dancing together. You will see all nations dancing together. These nations were once at war with each other, and now the children don't agree. And what they want to do is they want to dance with each other. They want to get along. In any battle that takes place on the dance floor. And any conflict that they have, they take care of it on the dance floor, a non-violent way, and we're living Martin Luther King's vision. He was connected. He foreseen us coming. He foreseen the healing of the nation. Because if you look at his speeches and all of that, he was talking about hip hop. He was talking about the forecoming of hip hop. And we are it. We are dancing together. In my crew style elements, we're a global crew. We have Puerto Rican. We have so-called black. We got natives, we got Pinoys, we got Cambodian, we got, Vietnamese, we got all races in our crew, Mexica, we got all, and we all jam together. And then you see when we get unified as a crew, it's world champion status, undefeatable, unbeatable, and when we unite. And that style elements as just an example, look at what happens when people unite of different cultures and different colors and different cultural backgrounds, different ways they were raised. So that's what I want to say about racism is look at, we have the cure to racism. And how can you hate someone that you see so beautiful? You see all their beautiful attributes. You see all the struggles of their people and what made them strong, resilient, and you harvest that. You pull from their energy. You pull from their traditions, because that's what hip hop is. It's a bunch of traditions. It's a bunch of people getting to exercise the traditions that were stolen from them, that were taken from them, their dances, their moves. It's an amazing thing when you see people in Russia breaking, you know what I mean? And they do it with such passion because like the Iron Curtain was lifted. It was illegal for them to dance and practice their culture too for a long time until the 90s. And so when that Iron Curtain got raised, then they were able to sing and dance again. And then when they found hip hop, you've seen it appropriated right into those missing places where culture was stolen, and that filled in the gaps. And now you see like crews like Predator and Top 9, and you see the way they dance, and then you could see the Russian ancestry, or say the ancient ancestral dances from then. You see the footwork, you see the Russian kicks, you see all that dynamic spins, and you could see them eating their culture again, getting back their culture, something that was stolen from them. Same thing with us out here. We're getting back. We're able to, like, the number one step in b-boying you have to do is the Indian step, the powwow step. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do that crossover, this step. That's native. That's not that's not a step from the Bronx. That's an ancient step. So we get activated culturally on our traditions, and it's everyone. Everyone gets activated. If you know and you could see people's traits and where they're from, you can see how they're contributing and what they're contributing. I look at them like, oh, wow, that's their traits and technology from their culture, from their unique perspective and their unique way of growing up. So, yeah, so when we touch on the topic of racism, I believe we found the cure to racism and violence and war, because with breaking, to me, it's the highest form of martial arts, because it's the art of fighting without fighting. Like, you can dismantle someone's mentality about you and not even touch him. You You can inspire your adversary right then and there to where they change their mind and they're on your team now. They're like, oh shoot, okay, hold on. He is that. He did believe. I can't front there. That takes skill and dedication for him to do that. So then you even get this mutual respect, and then by the end of it, the conflict settled, it's left on the floor. It doesn't matter who win or lost. It's like, nah, I got to express I got to say what I had to say. I got to do what I got to do, and conflicts are settled there. And then usually you become friends afterwards. Like Circle of Fire and Style Elements used to be mortal enemies, you know what I'm saying, on the dance floor. Every time we would see them, when we come up to the Bay, we'd battle them, and we battled Circle of Fire before they were Circle of Fire, when they were Metaphysics, when they were, we always battle with Seth, Bob, Amy, and when we see each other, we're like, oh, there they go. Okay, we can go in a circle. Boom, we go at it. Boom, boom. Oh, you're whack. Oh, you're whack. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing each other year after year at events, and we were like, actually, that dude fucking loves this. I see my bro Bob. Me and Bob used to go at it, bro. We used to talk all kinds of crap to each other, and then we end up becoming really good friends. By the third, fourth year, we became allies. You know what I mean? So that's why Soul Shifters, even exists, is because that's basically Style Elements and Circle of Fire getting together and creating another crew. So it just shows you how we've found a really efficient way to deal with conflict, and the art of fighting without fighting, the non-violent way. And it's crazy because the better you fight, the more you refine yourself, the more that your knowledge of self gets deeper as you go into forging yourself to be ready for the battle, and so you just learn so much about yourself. You go in, you study yourself. So I think we found the solution for those two major things on this planet. And if we could use hip hop as medicine, movement medicine, I think that the world will heal. And it's healing as we speak, but it's being led by corporate entities right now that don't fully understand what we're here to do. I think they're trying to figure it out, but they're not us, so they can't think like us. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that it's an abomination. All I'm saying is they need better consultants on what this really is and how to extract the pure energy and the medicine in it, so then that they can distribute to the people, because they already see the power in it. There's trillions of dollars put into this every year globally. It comes up to that. Like, this is not a small thing. This is such a huge phenomenon. It's a phenomenon. It's broken a lot of taboos, and it's broken a lot of dogmas. A lot of mentalities, old mentalities. Breaking has really changed the planet. And not just breaking, but hip hop. I mean, like I was saying earlier, is that they're studying us in university. Like, put it this way, I don't want to go too much on this because this is a whole nother topic, but Boston Robotics is studying B-boys on how to train their robots to be superior. They're looking at B-boy movements. China is very interested in B-boying to train their military. They're training their military with B-boying. You have to be on the Korea, China. Look at what they're doing with breaking. Look at how they're utilizing breaking. And they're literally, there's footage out there with like 200 kids doing air flares in synchronicity. Have you seen that clip?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to talk about, is that other countries and other people who do see the value in this are utilizing it for its proper use. In our country, they want us down so much that they don't utilize the technology in its right form. I think it gets, here in America, we're really, I like to call this place America. I say Maca. Here on this continent in Maca, we're really good at manufacturing trends. We create the trends, the rest of the world, and then we distribute it. But a lot of the true value of the movements that we create get really overlooked by our system on where to appropriate this stuff. Like, nowadays they're seeing how important hip hop is, that they need it to gain the attention of the youth. They need it in the education system. They need it in politics. They need it in, in all of these realms so they can get their message across, because we had figured it out already. Like, let's be honest. Hip hop has already created a global nation, and it's a rogue nation. Maybe don't share this, because this is some kind of things that they like, oh shit, I'm giving them the insights on, like, but for real, think about it. Hip hop is a global nation already. I could go to Germany, and I got friends in Germany. We speak the same language. We speak hip hop. I could go to China, and I'm with the China community. I'm not a part of their nation. I'm just a part of this hip hop community that exists in China. I'm a part of the hip hop community that exists in France. I'm a part of the hip hop community that exists in Japan. I've already experienced it. I am a global citizen of hip hop. Hip hop is global. So it's got the potential to solve a lot of problems, and it's the answer to a lot of problems on segregation, racism, socialism. It has a lot of remedies, a lot of medicine in hip hop, tons of medicine. And if they can extract it for the good use, you would see a healing of the nation, as it is already. Like, you can see it when we're getting down, we're healing. When we're getting down, we are the revolution. We are change. We're making change physically at that moment right now. And a great thing about b-boys and, say, for instance, dancers, well, I say b-boy because I'm a b-boy, and you can even look at now, jazz is using our moves, modern dance is using our moves, interpretive dance is using our move, ecstatic dances are using our move, the technology of the swipe, the technology of the, vorticular flow of the energy of groundwork and sweeps. And you see all of that in modern dance now, but they're not trying to call it breaking. They're trying to call it, what do they call it? Alternative, or, modern, or they're trying to rename something. But really what they're trying to do is trying to be us. They're trying to be b-boys. They're trying to do what b-boys do, So I'm just saying is that I look at hip hop as a medicine for the world, a medicine that the whole planet needs to take. And to don't forget that this was foreseen by great prophets like Martin Luther King, by people who foreseen this coming. And if you look at his speech in I Have a Dream speech, he's literally talking about us. Then, now, we're the living manifestation of that dream. I mean, who can deny it? It is all children dancing together, playing together, because we're playing. When dancing, you're playing. You know what I mean? So I'm communicating with everybody, and I'm very cultural fluent for as many times as I've been in the circle, the thousands of times I've been in the circle, and been able to communicate on a higher form of communication with people from all walks of life. Like, I went to Japan. I didn't speak any Japanese, but I communicated 100% with the Japanese people. And we got each other on a deeper level because we ciphered together and we spoke a higher form of communication. Same thing when I went to France. I didn't speak no French. I connected with Actual Force and the family and Gabon and Ibrahim, and we were like this, and Kareem, and we were just the same people. Wanted crew, all these crews from around the world. We're like one, we're like, oh, wow, we get each other, and we're not speaking. It's just energy around each other, the dance, the thing. Oh, I know what rhythm you're on. I understand what it feels like when you're right there, when you're in that realm of vibration and rhythm. I can get it. I get it already. I don't have to think about it. I already know what that feels like. Rah, rah, like a dungeon dragon, change a little, you know what I mean? Like, I know what that feels like. I get into that mode, so I could relate. So I say this is a higher form of communication globally, and it's a manifestation of some great dreams, and if society could see us in the light that we're supposed to be in, they would see our purpose, and they would understand that hip hop is medicine.
Well, that's really amazing. It's really deep.
Mm-hmm. That's why I take this so serious, brethren. You know what I mean? This is life for me. It's not a pop culture. It's not even culture to me. It's beyond that. It's before what creates culture.
You're saying it's just existence itself.
Well, I think it's harmonious existence.
Okay.
It's universal existence. It's existing with the universe and responding to creation's frequency, because creation is creating. It's in harmony. There's nothing out of balance out there. It's all harmonic. So tapping into that, that strength.
What's your view on, and possibly the two sides of the same coin? One is, what's your view on depression and spirituality?
I think depression is supernatural. I am mad depressed because I am very aware. And the more aware you are, the more depression you will experience, because you're more sensitive. Like I said, an exposed nerve. But how are you going to manifest that depression? That depressive energy? Because who cannot be depressed in this time? You must have no empathy at all if you don't experience no depression, because it's sad what's happening to the birds. It's sad what's happening to the marine life. It's sad what's happening to us. So it's like it's natural to feel some kind of depression, or because it's a psychopathic world. Like, we're literally governed by psychopaths in this so-called country, right? That's how I see it, because they're placing value on things that have no value. Like, say for instance, this paper money, or even digital. Now it's like made up now, and it doesn't even exist, but it has value. So they devalue the tree for being the tree and turn it into paper, turn it to valueless, and then say it's valuable. So this is all a mind trick. All of this is a mind trick. All of this is made up, and it's all a part of the sorcery. It's all a part of the spelling. It's all a part of this ancient way of enslaving people. It's a technology on how they enslave people. They got this down to a science. And so, yeah, that's what I am very aware of what's happening. How I deal with it is like I said, dance, music, art, color, sound, is I transmutate any energy that I get that way, and I turn it into positive energy. I turn it into food for thought. And it just excites me to get more people activated, to where my biggest goal in life is to release people from slavery. And not slavery as in the sense of going to a job working. No, the slavish mentality. To think way beyond that, to break out of that format and be free, and to think freely. And not to subscribe to these foreigners, like foreign. Like, they sometimes act like they ain't even from Earth. Like, who would do that to the water? You got to drink that. You know what I mean? Like, to us, to us natives, that's common sense. But to them, they act like they don't got to be here. You know what I mean? They're going to put mercury and all this waste and toxic waste, and also rig the earth. Like, I would promote depression in a sense, because it's got to make people look at it that we're already nuked. This is a conversation between me and you. We're nuked, brethren. Look up right now. You can look up on ChatGPT on how many nuclear bombs exist on the planet right now. It's already stuck with thousands of nuclear atomic bombs. We're destined to blow. So anyone who's not depressed and doesn't want to think about that or anything is like, whoa, like, hold on, you got 3,000 atomic? I thought one of those things were destructive. You got 3,000 of them implanted underneath the earth, like deep into the earth, all out here in Livermore, and you know what I mean, all around the country. I'm like, ooh, this is not, that's too many to undetonate. This is bound to blow. So of course I would expect people to be a little bit worried and depressed.
So you're saying that depression is actually a natural part of an experience, being tapped into whatever is happening, either empathy for what's happening to Mother Nature, or empathy for yourself, or everything. Everything
in existence is in trouble right now, in a sense of, of destruction. They've literally nuked our planet. They nuked the water. They nuke everything. Like, that's why I say sometimes they act like they're not even from here. Like they don't got to live here. And whether they're trying to bring in revelations or whatever their psychosis is, you know what I mean? But it's definitely a madman. you know?
Yeah, I guess that's very different than how the Western world views depression as like something you got to like block out, overcome, or medicate for.
Nah, I'm like, yeah, you should be depressed. If you see what they did to the otter and the beaver and the buffalo and the native man, I'd be depressed too. And I got bad depression, but I know how to deal with it.
How do you deal with it?
That's what I'm saying. Hip hop, dance,
Yeah,
song,
the
art, murals,
the
colors.
the theme of what you're talking about seems, or the commonality of the activities that you mentioned seems to be transmuting a death energy into a life energy, right?
Yes, and that's what we are, brother. We are here to transmutate darkness into light. That's what our vessel does. We literally take these ideas that didn't exist, bring them into light. You know, as in all of this here. So transmutators, that's what we are. We transmutate energy. At our optimal, right?
And finally, what's your view on spirituality?
Everything is spiritual. Every single thing. This cup, this table, this microphone with the metals in it. You know what I mean? All of these have purposes and spirits in them that are purposed to do this, that hold energy, that contain that vibration, that organize space. So, you know, I look at spirituality as creator's technology. I look at it as technology. I look at it as a way a scientist would look at, you know, quantum physics. It's spirituality governs everything. So when I think in a spiritual aspect, I think of life. That's life. That's the breath of life, spirit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. How can people best support you?
Support me is love yourself. That's the best way you could support me, because that's where you're going to connect with me, is through the self-love, self-cultivation, self-forging, and then you'll meet me there. I'll be there. You know, that's where I'm at. I'm on that plane. I'm working on myself. I'm loving myself. I'm, you know, cleaning myself. I'm healing myself. And so when someone is doing that, we meet on that same journey. And then we can share vital information on what worked for you, what worked for me, you know?
Yeah, that's very beautifully said. Any shout outs you'd like to mention?
Man, there's too many, honestly. There's too many shots out, because I just shout out the whole thing, you know, the whole planet and the whole hip hop nation. And I shout out the whole hip hop nation, the real hip hop nation. Like I said, not this hip hop, right? Hip hop, conscious movement. Being hip is to know. Hop is to move, to movement. So a knowing movement, a conscious movement. Shouts out to everybody involved, and continue to build. I'm here to be food for thought, food for spirit, and to let you know that you are on the right path. You are following your intuition of a higher source. So stay connected on that vibration, that one drum, that, you know, when we are creating, we are very close to creator, you know, so stay in that creation realm, stay into producing, moving, manifesting, and transmutating darkness into light. So that's what I want to shout out to everybody doing that, putting in the work, because it's rigorous. It's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not societal. You're not going to benefit in society doing this kind of work. You're going to benefit in the spiritual realm. You're going to have a kingdom in a whole nother realm rather than a skyscraper here in this dense realm, right? So, you know, where you're investing in, that's where your kingdom will be, you know? So if you're investing in hardcore in the spiritual, you're going to have a spiritual kingdom. You have a nice place there, you know? Similar like how if you invest in this one, you have a nice place here. So I would recommend that everyone work on their spiritual castles and cathedrals, you know?
And finally, what would you like to close out with?
Plus, I got so much stuff to, like I said, I'm in a quickening right now. That's how I can explain it. I'm having an experience right now as we speak. I'm in the experience, and I'm in a special place. That's why I got to be careful with who I hang out with and who I even give my time to, or who I because like a lot of this stuff could be people will look at me like I'm crazy. You know what I mean? But it's like, actually, it's the opposite. I'm just awake, and I'm just conscious, and I'm very sensitive, and I'm pulling from a source that is infinite and that has always been there. And I'm excited from what's to come, y'all. I'm so excited about these insights and these new awakenings. And like I said, I'm starting to remember how to build pyramids again. I'm starting to remember all this technology that is so-called taboo to us that we didn't create, right? I'm getting all these downloads, and like I said, I'm interfacing with my environment. So I'm very excited about what's happening to me. I'm eager to share the insights, because I know that this is technology. I know this is something tangible, and who knows if this generation or the next generation, but we're already seeing benefits from the work already. Like literally, I inspired the whole planet to dance. The people who are dancers, and I've seen my influence all around the planet. There's not one dance competition where I'm not involved. I may not even be there, but I'm involved. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't even at the Olympics, but I was involved. My moves were. You know what I'm saying? My head slide was there. My neck move was there. My transitions were there. They were dancing like they were me. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I know specifically what I've brought into the vocabulary of movement. I see my traits. And so I'm just grateful for that. And I say the best way that people could support me is just be yourself, tap in, because you'll meet me there. And when we get there, best believe we're just going to jam. We're going to celebrate. And one more thing I'm going to tell everybody before I head out is that a lot of people forget. And that's why I'm reminded. And I'm going to remind you right now that the most pleasurable thing that you can experience in this life is there's all the bliss you need. The bliss is in your breath. If someone was to hold your head underwater more than you can take, right when you get up and right when you breach that water, you're going to go, and you're going to realize that was all that mattered. And that was the bliss that you were missing when you were in pain, when you were being held from that. And so I found bliss in every breath. So that's what I want to share with people out there, is that they're looking for this thing that's going to bring them happiness, when I'm saying you got it all built in already. Your breath is bliss. And if you can find the bliss in that, you're not going to need for much. You're going to realize that it's already there, and you're going to extract blissful moments in every breath. So those are some insights that I journeyed hard and deep for, that I came back and brought these little insights of gold from mining and forging and digging and being a miner in a sense of a spiritual realm. Now I come back with those little golds of insight. Like, hey, look, I found this piece of gold. It said that bliss is in your breath, that there's nothing more pleasurable than breathing. It's the foundation to all other pleasures. You know what I mean? So find the bliss in your breath, y'all.
Thank you so much. This has been an incredible time talking to you.
Bless up, brother.
Really appreciate you coming on the show and being brave, and also being vulnerable and courageous to share the fullness of your insights and the fullness of your journey and experiences. And definitely looking forward to having you on for part 2.
Hey, man, let's do it. And no, some of this stuff is coming out in it's like bandwidth, right? It's like modem speed right now. You know what I mean? But as I awaken more, I'm going to be on that, you know what I'm saying? That fiber optic cable, where more of this is able to flow, because right now it's still in a little stream. So I may get a little confused or a little off on my delivery. And also, this isn't my language. You know what I mean? So I'm speaking in another tongue, because I could articulate this far different in my native tongue. You know what I mean? Because I've been speaking for centuries and eons. This new language, that English is very limited, because English one word will mean 4 or 5 different things. It's designed that way. So we called it a forked tongue language. So because it means 3 things when you're speaking, but we used to speak solid, and everything was just, it meant what it meant. It didn't mean four different things. So me articulating the spirituality in this language is very difficult. So as I get better at this language and communicating in this kind of flat language, right? Because it's very, very flat. See, back in the day, we used to talk like it's na huts the inst. Like there was unk, like unk papa. There was every time you said a word, it came from your diaphragm, and it's like the hey ya, like all of those things. We spoke very different, So for us, speaking English, a foreign tongue, like an indigenous man speaking a foreign tongue, you're not going to get the full articulation, But in the language, in the song, in the dance, that's where it's pure. So that's why dance is very important, because there's the pure language right there. You're getting it without any static or any confusion, because even these conversations have to be deciphered, right? That you got to pick it apart and realize okay, he meant that and that. Our language was direct. It was nothing to decipher. It was, arrow up, arrow down,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Having the fullness of the meaning and sincerity and activation behind communication versus leaving it open for interpretation.
Yeah, well, check this out. A lot of our problems in this planet right now are because of language. Literally, look at it. It's language based. A lot of this war is coming from language, rhetoric, miscommunication, forked tongue. Language, man. Language is a weapon, and especially this English language. It's a weapon, bro. And we're speaking a weaponized language against our people. So if I spoke another tongue for eons, and then now this 100 years, I'm speaking this one. You know what I mean? So did I ever really speak if I never spoke my native tongue? Did I ever speak? Now I'm speaking another, I'm brainwashed. I'm, lobotomized, where I'm speaking someone's tongue that's, even in Europe, there's plenty of tongues there. English wasn't the dominant language, It was just like, this is a weaponized, broken down to this many letters, this is very limited. And I think a lot of this complication that comes from communication is the language barrier and the language stifling growth. Is the language can't grow. That's why only time it seems even understandable to us in the ghetto is when we turn it into ebonics and we turn it into music or flows or raps, to where it's got some roll to it, some. So we got to speak like that. Like even the California natives, they got some recordings of Ishi, the last native here speaking in California, and he's like, that's how they talked, So it's like, I'm just saying that this English is very limited, brother. So it's only gonna let us communicate on a very limited spectrum of communications. That's why dance surpasses that. We can have a higher communication when there's nothing being spoken.
Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.